Table of Contents Cover Prologue. We Have No Relationship Chapter 1. Confession on a Dare Interlude. Her Feelings Chapter 2. Dating on a Dare Interlude. Her Change Chapter 3. A Challenger Appears Interlude. Her Bold Actions and Their Result Chapter 4. Our First Date Interlude. Her First Date Chapter 5. The Past and the Future Interlude. Her Future Chapter 4.5. Us on Our Date Afterward. Color Illustrations. Bonus Short Stories about J Novel Club. Copyright. Download all your fav light novels from Just Light Novels. Prologue. We have no relationship that day, like any other day, began and ended without any particular incident. Or at least, that's how it was supposed to play out. Yo, you want to go do karaoke? I feel like a song or two. But it's only Monday. Oh, come on. I'll blow this gloomy Monday away with one note of my beautiful voice. As I prepared to head home, the voices of the most extroverted of my peers calling out to their friends entered my ears. They were the popular kids, those at the top of the school cast. Hey, you guys, come too. Let's hear some anime songs for a change. The extroverts had addressed the class's group of otaku guys who weren't that unlike me. The otaku guys reacted in a grandiose manner as they gladly accepted the invitation. Fortunately, in my class, there was no bullying of any kind, at least none that I knew of. The students each had their own clique, which inevitably determined who had a say in what and who had the most authority, but on a basic level, the different groups tended to get along. I was probably the only exception. I didn't belong to any particular group, and I basically only said a few words to my classmates every now and then, so I didn't have any close friends there. Even now, no one took any notice of me while they chatted about their karaoke plans. In the middle of it all, having seemingly made up his mind, one of the guys called out to a group of 3 girls, 3 of the most eye-catching girls in the class. His voice rose shakily as though he were nervous. Hey, Nanarmi, you guys are coming too right. It won't be any fun unless you 3 are there. Despite the male student's resolve, the response he got was far from positive. A girl with black hair spun around and waved her hand, declining the invitation immediately. Oh, I think we'll pass this time. We have something to take care of with Nanarmi. You guys have fun? Oh, come on. Doing karaoke with everyone is way more if you don't drop it. The black-haired girl turned a terrifying smile on the guy, who withdrew dejectedly. Oh, okay. The 3 of you aren't coming this time. I get it. At that, the female student nodded, satisfied. Behind her, the girl he'd called out to Nanarmi seemed somewhat relieved, or was that just my imagination? All 3 girls were what you'd think of if you imagined a typical Gyaru, that is, they were showing a lot of skin and seemed like they were pretty experienced with guys, so perhaps it had been my imagination. Her name was Nanarmi, right? It was a name I thought I'd heard somewhere before, but I couldn't really remember where. Well, that has nothing to do with me, I thought as I left the classroom. Even outside it, I could hear them deciding among themselves on a decent karaoke bar, but my own mind was already occupied with thoughts of playing my online game when I got back home. You see, this was just a difference between having friends in class and having friends outside of it. I simply chose to prioritize hanging out with friends I'd made online. That's all. With that considered, thoughts about my classmates heading off for karaoke and the group of Gyaru who already had plans quickly disappeared from my mind. I had no relationship with these people that I'd never have anything to do with. Those 3 eye-catching Gyaru in particular would never be interested in me. Or at least, that's what I thought until that day. I never even imagined it. I never imagined that those girls know. I never imagined that I would become deeply involved with that girl, a girl I had no relationship with, and that so many things would change. Whether that was good or bad, the present me had yet to discover. Chapter 1. Confession on a Dare. The girls' voices reverberated throughout the classroom, which had been left near empty now that the rest of our classmates had set off for karaoke. Nanarmi loses. It's decided. Nanarmi faces the penalty. Penal tie. Yay, I'm so glad it's not me. Hello, I me. The Gyaru, the girls at the top of the class caste system. The embodiment of extroverted, beautiful, and cute, and thus the girls who already belonged to the winning team in life were, for some reason, playing cards in our classroom after school. They didn't seem to be betting money. Instead, they were setting up a game of some sort of game where the loser had to face a dare. I was impressed that, despite their gaudy appearances, they would play their card games so wholesomely. Yashin Misumai had no direct contact with the girls in question, but had just so happened to come across the scene. I'd forgotten something in the classroom and caught them here with no intention of eavesdropping, of course. But since I'm an introvert without much of a presence, it seemed that they hadn't even noticed me. It was ironic, really. That is, being an introvert when the yo in my name meant extroverted. I sure wasn't living up to the name. Not that I really cared. For the time being, I couldn't help but wonder what was so important about their penalty game that it had kept them from joining their friends for karaoke. Couldn't they have just made the karaoke a part of the game? Well, it had nothing to do with me. It was time I forgot about the whole thing and headed home. It was no big deal, I'd just forgotten my pencil case. I grabbed the container from my desk, put it in my bag, and began to leave the classroom. As I'd imagined, the girls continued talking without noticing me. My seat was at the back, and the door was open, so I hadn't made a sound when I entered. But considering how loud they were being even if the door had been closed, the sound of me opening it would probably have been drowned out anyway. As for the penalty, let's go for a confession. Tomorrow after school, I dare you to go bare your heart to a guy you don't normally talk to. Oh, that's good. Confessing on a dare, that's a classic. A confession? The girl who had been sentenced to the penalty, her name was Nanami, wasn't it? Yeah, I was pretty sure it was Nanami, Barato-san. Barato-san responded in a tone that signaled displeasure and, despite wearing an unreasonably short skirt, crossed her legs on the desk she was sitting on. From the front, her secrets probably would have been in full view, but I suppressed my desire to circle around to the spot in front of her. Hey, even introverts have sex drives, so I couldn't help wanting to do so. Not that I had the courage to go stand there and look. Toying with someone's emotions is the worst. You can't ask someone out on a dare. A confession has to be more serious, like to someone you're really into. You keep saying that, but you're the only one of the three of us who doesn't have a boyfriend. You know, Barato-san didn't have a boyfriend. I'd thought for sure all three of them had boyfriends. Anyway, I'd thought that since she was a Gyaru, she'd be all into the whole hooking up on a dare thing, but it turned out she actually had some common sense. What she was saying was perfectly reasonable. Right. But come on, you're the hottest one here, and people ask you out all the time, but you always turn them down, don't you? Oh, that's because guys are kinder scary, and when they ask me out while they're just ogling me the whole time, it's like so she thinks men are scary. Again, this was unexpected. Perhaps that relieved expression I'd glimpsed earlier hadn't just been my imagination. While her two friends, whose names I'd already forgotten, continued talking, their voices full of concern, Barato-san remained silent. Hey, wait, you need to speak up. Barato-san, you're right about this. Don't give in, stick it out. Having formed a better opinion of her, I rooted for her in my mind. Just mentally, of course, not out loud. You don't know the first thing about guys, Nanami. So, for now, try asking out a guy who seems harmless and go out with him for at least a month. That's your penalty. But, for a month, it doesn't matter how you get started. You just have to get used to guys. We're worried about you. At this rate, we are afraid you're going to get attacked by some weirdo. All things considered, it seemed the two friends were worried about Barato-san in their own way, even if they were going about it in the wrong manner. Come to think of it, I was totally eavesdropping, but there was no way I could leave now. I was curious to hear Barato-san's answer. Fortunately, I hadn't been noticed yet. What was a guy to do? Let's see, we should go for a no libido or celibate type who wouldn't try to pounce on you when you're alone. It's just a dare, so there's no need to force yourself to keep going out with them. But of course it's okay if you do. And anyway, even if you two do break up, if he doesn't know it was on a dare in the first place, he wouldn't be that hurt either, right? I mean, if you confess to him and he gets to go out with you for a whole month, he'll be totally happy. And we'll never spill that we dared you to do it. Both friends were thoroughly into the idea and continued goading Barato-san to do it. True, if they dated for a month and the guy didn't find out, his feelings wouldn't get hurt. In fact, that month might even feel like a reward, except did these girls realize Did they have any idea how a guy confessed to by Barato-san would be looked at by other guys? Nanami Barato. Thinking the name sounded familiar, I culled through my memories and recalled an anecdote about her. It was the name of the girl made legendary for having attacked, exploded, and sunk the love boats of numerous good-looking guys. It was such a well-known rumor that even I knew about it, and to go out with that legendary girl would for sure mean being looked at by said good-looking guys with eyes filled with jealousy and envy. If I were that guy, the guy that she chose to go out with, I didn't think I'd be able to stand it. My stomach would be filled with holes, and instead of sweat, digestive fluids would come spurting out of my body. In the end, I'd dissolve into oblivion. It sounds like a joke, but that's just how high the hurdle was. I didn't know who the guy was who would taste heaven and hell simultaneously, the guy to be both envied and pitied, but that was no concern of mine. I wished him the best in a situation that was none of my business. I'd overheard the details about the confession and the 1 month of dating, but I'd keep it all to myself. Having made up my mind, I was about to stop eavesdropping and sneak away unnoticed when their next words froze me in place. Then, tomorrow, Bo confessed to the quietest guy in class. Yoshin Mitsumai. Was it my imagination, or did I just hear a familiar name? Mitsumai, huh? I guess if it's him, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So the name of the guy to be envied and pitied was Yoshin Mitsumai. That sure sounded familiar. Yeah, that sounded like a very near and dear name. I'd bet we'd get along. No, wait. Was there someone else in our class or in our school, even with that same exact name? No, there wasn't. This wasn't the time to be escaping reality. I'm here. I heard everything. Wait. I'm gonna be confessed to tomorrow by Barato-san. Should I prepare myself for this? But how am I supposed to confess? I mean, if you just ask him to meet you behind the school building and tell him you like him, that's all it takes, right? It's like in a shoujo manga. Good luck, Nanami. Speaking of which, how did you guys confess to your boyfriends? Having heard enough, I set off home, unnoticed by the 3 girls who had begun chattering about their own confessions. With my head spinning with the plans I'd just witnessed, I felt uncharacteristically perturbed. Fortunately, no one had arrived home just yet, so my state of shock passed by unseen. Canon, and that's what happened, Baron-san. What should I do? Aaron, har, confessing on a dare? How very high school. The joy of youth. Back at home, I was discussing today's happenings with Baron-san, who belonged to the same team as I did in one of our online games. I wasn't comfortable with voice chat, so I took the liberty to play in a way that was comfortable for me, using my phone to chat and my computer to play. A team-based tournament was starting today, and despite being in the middle of the qualifiers, I was asking him about my personal problems. I felt bad about it, but he had very graciously accepted my request for help. Although I had no friends at school, there were loads of people I could talk to online. It doesn't matter where your friends are these days. Even online friends are friends. It just so happened that I didn't seek any out at school. Canon, it's no laughing matter, Baron-san. Please try putting yourself in my shoes, Baron. But these aren't my shoes, and it's hilarious. Anyway, how did they not notice you? They singled you out as someone who's quiet, so your presence can't be going that unnoticed. It's a relief, really. That was a surprise for me, too. Actually, I was more surprised by the fact that the 3 of them knew my name than I was by the whole penalty game thing. Before now, I'd just assumed they didn't know my face or name. Perhaps the reason I'd been able to sneak out of the classroom successfully was that the 3 of them hadn't realized I was there at all. And perhaps I was going to face that confession tomorrow. Canon, but what should I do? It's all just a dare, Baron. Well, it's not so bad, is it? You should just go out with her. You don't have a girlfriend, right? You can think of this as an opportunity for her to get used to boys, and for you to get used to girls. I couldn't help but sigh at the chat response from Baron-san, who seemed to be taking all this way too lightly. How easy would it have been if I could make that choice? Peach, I'm against it. Toying with someone's emotions like that to have to reject her. Canon-san. Canon, I appreciate that you're getting angry on my behalf, but you can't say that so easily. Peach-san. Canon was the name of my in-game character, and the one who'd piped up with concern was Peach-san. a girl on the same team whom I got along pretty well with. That said, I'd never met Baron-san or Peach-san in real life, so I didn't actually know their genders, but Peach-san was most likely female. Peach, why not? You're only being confessed to, so you should just reject her. Baron, now. Deep breaths. Peach-chan. Baron-san was doing his best to pacify Peach-san for me. There were just the three of us in the chat. Other folks were too busy fighting their way through the qualifiers to join in the conversation. This is the chat for the entire team, so I bet they are all going to see this later. I was anxious just thinking about it, but at least we had the chat to ourselves for now. Peach-san had told me to reject the confession, but it really wasn't that simple. If an introvert like me were to reject Barato-san, just how many people would I make enemies of? Of course, she'd be the one in the wrong for doing this because she'd been dared to, but that tidbit of information was only known to the parties involved. Barato-san would be at an advantage in every other regard in terms of her social position. I mean, damned if I said yes, damned if I said no. That was why I needed Baron-san's advice. Baron, so I take it you feel you're damned either way? My heart skipped a beat as Baron-san seemingly read my mind. How could this guy know exactly what I was thinking with only a text chat to go off of? This was precisely why I'd chosen to ask this guy for advice. Baron, then just say yes. It'd be more beneficial for the both of you. Canyon, and by beneficial you mean Baron. I mean that you'll get loads of curious and disapproving looks no matter what you say. She's popular, right? Canyon, yeah, that's what I've heard. Now that I've thought about it, Barato-san was pretty sought after by guys. With her sweet and chipper personality and her tendency not to discriminate against her classmates, guys at school seemed to fall for her every single day, each clinging to a rose-tinted misconception that maybe she liked them. It was her fashion that identified her as a gyaru. I'd only ever seen her in her school uniform, but she wore it in such a way as to maximize its cuteness without breaking any school rules. Her short skirt, for example, struck that fine line between keeping her covered and flashing her underwear. She would also leave her shirt unbuttoned at the top, revealing a generous portion of cleavage between twin mounds that seemed out of place on a high school student. This was part of the reason I had the impression she liked to fool around with guys, but I didn't expect her to be that inexperienced. I guess that's why she turned down all the good-looking guys that confessed to her, whether they be handsome sports team captains, handsome bad boys, or handsome, serious, studious types. I had mistakenly thought she was in a position to take her pick of anyone she liked, but because she was so unaccustomed to men, not one of them had a chance of dating her to begin with. People aren't always as they seem. I'd do better to remember that. Granted, I was just as much of a sucker as any of those guys, but being confessed to by a girl like that was beyond unexpected, even if she had been dared to do it. Baron, you'll leave a better impression as the guy who was confessed to by the popular girl and got dumped a month later than as the guy who flat out rejected her. Besides, you should think of this as an opportunity. Canyon, an opportunity? I began to wonder if Baron-san was talking about what he'd said earlier about me getting used to women, but as it turned out, that wasn't what he meant at all. Baron, if you were to accept her confession, you'd be going out with her for at least a month, right? Then during that month, how about you try to make her smitten with you? Peach, Baron-san, what are you saying? Canyon-pa? Peach-san was shocked at Baron-san's suggestion, while my response was downright idiotic. Baron, oh? Maybe smitten is kind of old-fashioned. Did I sound old? That's not what we're so surprised by, Baron-san. My hands paused at the unexpected suggestion. Peach-san seemed just as speechless. Baron, look, you have a huge advantage. The fact that you already know she was dared to do it. Canyon, right, Tess? I do know that. But is that really an advantage? Baron, sure is. Think about it. What would happen if you didn't now? You'd be elated thinking she had a crush on you, wouldn't you? That was certainly true. Even as an introvert, no. Especially because I was an introvert. The feeling of superiority that would come with being chosen by one of the popular girls would have brought about a considerable change in me. Canyon, well, I would definitely be happy. I might get cocky for being chosen by her and get kinder carried away. Getting so full of myself when I didn't even have any friends would be ridiculous. Baron, if that were the case, you'd go through all that only for her to break up with you a month later. But because you know this is a dare, you'll be able to accept the situation calmly. Calmly you, I seem like I'm calm to you. I'm talking to you precisely because I'm not calm. Baron Sand continued explaining, paying no mind at all to my thoughts. Baron, you should work hard for a month to get her to like you, and then you can break up with her yourself. If not, you can continue going out with her. The choice is yours, but if it were up to me, I'd say your life would be way more fun if you continued dating her. Canon. Baron-san, are you by any chance enjoying this? Baron, of course I am. Oh, and do keep me posted, okay? Hearing about the love affairs of a real high school student makes for an amusing pastime. I slightly regretted having consulted Baron-san about this, but the more I listened to his logic, the more I came to think it made sense. It could have been that my thoughts were being conveniently strung along, but it was ultimately his advice that helped me make up my mind I was going to accept Barato-san's confession. Baron, oh, but do act like a good little high schooler. She's not comfortable around guys, so don't immediately get all touchy-feely. Canon, I would never. An introvert doesn't have the guts for that. Besides, I was chosen for this precise reason. The whole premise would go up in smoke. After that, I got back to the game while keeping an eye on Baron-san's advice. Peak-san was still against the idea, but maybe she gave up in the end because she stopped replying. Did I make her mad? She seemed worried about me, so I should apologize next time she replies back. On a side note, we successfully made it through the qualifiers, only for me to be teased by my teammates later on, but that's a story for another day. That night, maybe out of nervousness that I would soon be confessed to, I found it hard to get to sleep. Even at school the next morning I was kind of spacing out, and with the near-empty classroom so quiet I was close to dozing off at my desk. It was in that near-empty classroom, with me in my absent-minded state, that someone called out to me. I turned toward the source of the voice, my gaze locking onto a pair of thighs visible from below a skirt, and no, I've got to look at her face. Monsieur Mike, do you have time to talk after school today? As expected, the voice belonged to Barato-san. Her long brown hair looked soft as it swayed, and her voice was trembling slightly. Oh, yeah, no problem, Barato-san, I said. Thanks. Then I'll see you after school, she said. In that near-empty classroom in the early hours of the morning, that was all Barato-san said to me. She seemed somewhat brusque and nervous, or did it just seem that way because I knew the circumstances? After her short exchange with me, she quickly returned to her two friends. I didn't like to be tardy, so I usually arrived at the classroom early, but today the girls were just as early as I was. Maybe they'd chosen to get here now so as not to create a scene. The two friends avoided looking at me to an almost unnatural extent and were patting Barato-san on the back as they encouraged her. Good job, Nanami. Good job. If I didn't already know the circumstances, I might have misunderstood. It was as if it had taken her a great heap of courage just to talk to me. Actually, since she wasn't used to guys, she would probably be nervous no matter who she was talking to. From that point on, she and I had no contact at all until after school. I tended to sit alone by default, only speaking a couple of words here and there with some of my classmates. She, on the other hand, hung around her friends or with the extroverts in the class. Our meeting after school never came up. Still, it was impossible for me to put it out of my mind, so I stole glances at her from time to time. Maybe she felt similarly, because there were a few times when our eyes met. Each time, she would turn away, seemingly flustered and blushing. If I wasn't already clued in, I could have easily misunderstood her reactions. She had to be nervous. I was nervous too, but perhaps thanks to all the advice from Baron-san yesterday, I was able to remain somewhat calm. And just like that, school ended and the fated moment arrived. Thanks for waiting, Miss Sumai. So, can you maybe come with me for a bit? Everyone else had left the classroom, so it was only me and Barato-san. Even her friends weren't there. Since it was only a dare, I had thought that she'd confess to me right there in the classroom, but it seemed she wanted to do this somewhere else. Neither of us spoke as I followed behind her. This wasn't looking good. I'd been so sure I was calm, but with every step I took, my nerves intensified. Not only that, but Barato-san's hips were shaking as she walked, making her short skirt sway, and my gaze traveled toward "Oh shoot, this is not good. Remember what Baron-san told you yesterday. Baron, now listen, women are more sensitive to eye contact than men think. When she's confessing, make sure you look her straight in the eyes. No matter what, don't look at her cleavage, her legs, or anywhere else you shouldn't be looking. Right? Stay calm. Stay calm. Look straight." As I remembered Baron-san's advice, I felt my composure returning. We eventually arrived at the back of the school building, where the surrounding wall kept students from leaving the campus. The place was empty, so there was no danger of being seen. Instead, it was dangerous in the sense that there was no one there to keep an eye on you, and the random scrap lying around made the place seem like a health and safety hazard. "Okay, this should be good," Barato-san muttered to herself as she stopped and turned to face me. Her skirt fluttered as she spun, making it impossible for me not to stare. Even that small act made my heart jump, but I had to remain calm. "It's just a dare. Don't misunderstand." But, even knowing that, I couldn't help but feel my heart race. Barato-san began speaking after putting a considerable amount of distance between us. I didn't know if that distance was there because she was wary of me or because she was wary around guys in general, but I waited quietly for her to finish before answering. "Thanks for coming, Miss Yumai. I had something I wanted to say. Do you know what that might be? I'm sorry. I've never really spoken to you before, Barato-san, so I'm not sure why you wanted to see me. If it's money you want." "I don't really have much," I said, feigning naivety. "I'm not trying to get money out of you or anything like that," she cried. Though I wasn't sure if I'd successfully duped her, things seemed to be going okay. Well, she continued, fumbling for words, failing miserably to get to the point. She was the epitome of a girl gathering her courage in order to confess to someone. It didn't seem like a dare at all, even though I was nervous. Despite knowing that it was a lie, I looked her square in the face, too afraid to take my eyes off hers for even a moment. That said, the more I consciously did so, the more my gaze faltered. Remember, Baron-san said to look up a little bit, not down in times like these. If I looked down, it would seem as if I were staring at her body, but if I looked up, that could be avoided. Upward up following his advice, I raised my eyes. And so, it was thanks to that advice, but also by complete coincidence, that I was able to see it. "I'll like you, so will you go out with me?" Even before she'd finished speaking, I broke into a run toward her. On a typical day at home, I would often either play games or lift weights while watching videos. I'd never heard anything about lifting weights making you run faster, and honestly, I'd never really run before. But if it's this short of a distance, I should be able to make it. Believe in yourself, even if you have no basis for that belief. Make it in time. What I'd spied, by sheer coincidence, was a large bucket peeking out of an open window. It was a bucket used for cleaning on campus, peeking out from the open window. The moment I saw it, I remembered that this was the exact spot where students tended to toss the dirty water when they were too lazy to take it out. And at that same moment, Barato-san was under that bucket. At this rate, she's gonna be drenched by filthy water. The moment I thought that, my body moved without me thinking. It wasn't like you'd get injured by being doused in dirty water, but you'd sure get drenched in filth. Some would say it was a well-deserved punishment for confessing to me on a dare, but I couldn't feel that way. Even though it was a dare, seeing her standing there with that blush across her cheeks, trying to weave her words together, maybe it was all an act. But for Barato-san to get drenched in water when she was mustering up her courage to talk to a guy somehow, I just didn't want that. Eek! Barato-san screamed when she noticed me closing the distance with such speed, but I covered her with my body without hesitation. Thank God, I made it. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, cold water slapped across my back. Gar, it's more painful than I thought. It's cold, and it's dirty, and it hurts. The cold water soaking into my uniform knocked down my body temperature immediately, turning me into a quivering mess. Damn you! Don't clean with such cold water. Use warmer water. No, wait, don't toss it out the window in the first place. What is this? Water. Fine. Opening her eyes, Barato-san looked around from under me as if finally grasping the situation. Looking down at her, all I could think were out-of-place thoughts, like wondering if her shirt had gotten dirty because the ground wasn't paved, or thinking her disheveled clothes were too tempting to the eye. And then, before I could say anything, I received a blow across the back of my head. At the same time, I caught sight of the bucket at the edge of my vision. Apparently, the person who'd tossed the water from the window had been startled by Barato-san's scream and dropped the bucket. "At least keep hold of it, would you?" There was a little bit of water left inside it, which spilled out onto the ground. Good, if that had hit her, she might have been hurt, I thought. I looked down at Barato-san's face and frowned when I saw a red spot on her cheek. Oh wait, did she get hurt? Are you okay? Barato-san, are you hurt? I'm okay. I mean, are you okay, Misumai? I'm okay, my body's just cold and damp. No injuries. You are injured. Your head's bleeding. It was then that I realized that I did in fact have a small cut on my head, where the bucket had hit me, and that the red spot on Barato-san's cheek was actually my blood. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't bleed on you. I'll move. You didn't get wet, did you, Barato-san? Who cares about me? It's you whose those were the last words to reach my ears. The moment I stood up, moving away from Barato-san, my body swayed. It seemed the impact of that bucket had been greater than I thought. I was suddenly overcome with that dizzy feeling that comes with standing up too fast, and all at once the strength drained from my body. Bisumai, Bisumai. The last thing I heard before I lost consciousness was Barato-san's worried voice screaming my name. "Pa, is this the nurse's office?" When I came to, the ceiling above me seemed somehow familiar. It was the ceiling of the nurse's office. It was reassuring to know where I was, but why was I in the nurse's office? If I remember right, I'm pretty sure I was talking to Barato-san, and she just confessed to me. Oh, that's right. A bucket fell on my head, didn't it? Just then, my thoughts were disrupted by a voice calling my name. Bisumai. Thank God. You're awake. It was a girl's voice, Barato-san's voice, and it was coming from next to me. Was she the one who'd carried me here? Oh, right. Did you bring me to the nurse's office, Barato-san? Thanks, I'm not exactly the lightest, I said. Thank goodness you're awake. Thank goodness, said without responding to my question. Barato-san began to cry, seemingly overwhelmed by joy and relief. While I felt bad that I'd made her worry, I was also kind of flattered that she would worry about a guy like me. But come on, what did I matter? I was just glad Barato-san was okay. At any rate, she didn't seem to have changed out of her usual school uniform. Your clothes didn't get dirty and you weren't injured, were you? I asked her. Oh, no. Thanks to you, I'm fine. Wait, this isn't about me. Are you okay? You were bleeding so much. Did you catch anything from that dirty water? You're not feeling sick, are you? Has there really been that much blood? I'd been treated, so I didn't feel that much pain. I've heard you bleed a lot from your head, so maybe that was why. Well, maybe the bump on my head does hurt a little, but it's not a huge pain, and I don't feel nauseous. It looks like I can even get up. I'm fine, but I'm glad you're not hurt, I told her. I sat up in bed and flashed her a smile, but she averted her gaze. Had I made her mad? I didn't remember saying anything to upset her, though. Barato-san seemed a little flustered and began to speak while still turned away. Misumai, can you stay in bed? That way it's a little easier for me, she said. She was blushing and throwing sideways glances at me. Thinking her reaction was a little weird, I looked down at myself, only to find I wasn't wearing a shirt. Naked. I was buck naked. No, wait, I was still covered down there, but still, even though it was just my upper body exposed, my face grew hot at the thought of a girl seeing me naked. I'm sorry. Talk about an eyesore. I rushed to cover my body with the blanket and lay back down. And no, but you're more muscular than you seem. Huh, like skinny but still kind of ripped. Oh, I mean, it's not like I was staring or anything. Since I didn't hang out with friends much, I spent most of my free time at home. This gave me plenty of opportunities to work out. I hadn't thought my physique was all that useful, but for the first time, I could say that it had come in handy. Barato-san and I fell silently from the embarrassment of having been seen naked by a girl, and she from the embarrassment of having confessed that she'd seen a boy half naked. This silence continued for a while, filling the air between us until it was eventually broken by the arrival of the school nurse. Well, well, what do we have here? Two lovebirds, red in the face. Don't tell me you were using my office for a rendezvous, she asked. Barato-san, and I glowed even redder, but the nurse continued before we could deny her suggestion. Here you go, young man, she said, handing me a change of clothes. I packed up your dirty uniform for you to take to the dry cleaners, or you could go ahead and wash them yourself. I had things I wanted to say, but being relieved that the silence had been broken, I accepted the pile of clothes. As I did, I caught sight of Barato-san as she momentarily stepped out of the room. The nurse had handed me a spare school uniform. When I asked, she said that they always had extra sets on hand for times like these. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to go back to class or walk home in my gym clothes. While I pulled my arm through the sleeve, the nurse summed up what had happened. It seemed that after I'd collapsed, I'd been carried to the nurse's office by a male teacher that Barato-san had called to the scene. Since she hadn't wanted to move me after my head injury, and knowing she couldn't carry me all by herself, she'd run to the teacher's lounge to get help and rushed inside to tell them a boy had been injured. You're pretty level-headed, Barato-san. If that had been me, I probably would have panicked and tried to carry the person myself. Turns out, no one seemed to know who had dumped the dirty water out the window. It wasn't like they had cameras set up around the campus, so it would be impossible to determine the culprit. At most, each class would probably receive a stern warning, and that'd be the end of that. Well, it wasn't like it mattered that much. Make sure you thank the little lady. She's been keeping you company since you were brought here. Oh, to be young again, said the nurse. Hearing this, I felt my cheeks grow hot. For the time being, though, I chose not to humor them and continued changing in silence. Oh, your head injury wasn't a big deal, but I did take care of that cut. Are you feeling okay? If the pain persists, or if you start feeling dizzy, I recommend you go to the hospital immediately. When I finished changing, I found a thin square of gauze taped to my head. Other than that, I felt the same as usual, with no pain or nausea of any kind. I felt pretty alert too, so I probably didn't need to go to the hospital. I'd just have to let my parents know about the accident. Young lady, you can come back in now. Your boyfriend's finished changing. It's sweet, really. Fancy getting all red at the sight of one bare chest. The nurse laughed warmly as she left the room. When Barato-san came back inside, her face was still a bit flushed. No, I'm not her boyfriend. Hey, wait, she did confess to me before all this, so is that why I am now? Bisumai, are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. You fetched the teacher for me? How? Thanks. That was a huge help. Actually, I should be thanking you for protecting me. Protecting you? I just tried to shield you from a bucket and some dirty water, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, now I'm embarrassed. A strange silence passed between us. What am I supposed to say at times like this? Come on, think. What did Baron-san say? Wait a minute. Baron-san hadn't given me advice on what to say if I got injured during the confession. Wasn't there some way to spark up a conversation? As I was trying to remember the pointers from yesterday, Barato-san mumbled something. Your answer, her. My answer. I confessed to you, you know. And, I was thinking that I'd like to hear your response. But do you remember anything? Barato-san looked away from me slightly and tilted her head, twirling her brown hair around her finger. Her cheeks were ever so lightly flushed. It seemed that both she and I would be turning red this entire day. Oh, that's right. I'd run toward her before I could respond, so I hadn't really given her an answer. To me, there had only been one sure response, so I'd completely forgotten to tell her. I guess I must have been momentarily confused because I'd been knocked in the head. Barato-san was fidgeting nervously. Before then, she'd always seemed flashy and confident, but the girl before me was innocent and concerned. Could this be her true self? Baron-san said to look straight into her eyes when responding. Her eyes, Yashin, look into her eyes. Okay, this is a little embarrassing. Be brave, me are right. Look, I don't know why you like me, but if you're okay with it, then I look forward to going out with you, Barato-san. With that, her anxious expression blossomed into a smile. This must be what it means to smile like a flower. No, This flower is in full bloom. Maybe it's just an act, but I am one lucky bastard for being able to see this smile. If she keeps smiling at me like this, I'm going to get the wrong idea. This is a dare, don't let your guard down." She smiled brightly for quite some time before that smile turned cloudy. Then, with a small pout, she mumbled, "Nanarmi, excuse me." That was her name. I knew it already, but why would she mumble her own name? Without giving me a chance to wonder, the answer arrived to enlighten me. "We're dating now, so call me Nanarmi. I'll call you by your name too, Yashin." Saying stuff like that with those puppy dog eyes would make any guy kneel to obey her. It was a sly move, to be sure, or rather, an act so cute it was almost illegal. Truth be told, I was a little hesitant about calling a girl by her first name. I'd always thought the extroverts who could do things like that so easily were very different creatures from me. Nevertheless, I was about to say her name. My only worry was whether I could say it well. "Okay, yeah, right. It's a pleasure, and Nanami-san." I said it. It took everything I had, but I said it somehow, and now that I had said it, I felt extremely embarrassed. I was itching from head to toe. Wow, was I really going to be able to get used to this? Barato-san flashed me another beautiful smile. "Yes, it's a pleasure, Yashin. Geez, when she looks at me that way, it makes me want to try harder. I'll work on calling her by her name." I held out my right hand. This wasn't part of any of the advice Baron-san had given me, but something I'd decided to do myself. I was offering her a handshake. Barato-san hesitated for a moment, but she then took my hand and shook it. This was the first time in my life that I touched a girl's hand. It was soft, warm, and very small. Well, what do you know? You weren't even boyfriend and girlfriend yet. Boy, I walked into something good this time. Are you? Congrats, young man, young lady. Oh, but make sure to stick to a high school appropriate relationship, won't you? If you're gonna do it. Use protection. Caught unawares by the nosy school nurse peeking in, we rushed to unlock our handshake. Barato-san's face had never been redder, and my face was turning red as well. What was this nurse saying, anyway? "Shouldn't you be warning us against doing stuff like that?" I asked. "We are only in high school," the nurse responded with a nonchalant look. "Quite the opposite, young man. It's precisely because you're in high school that you need proper sex education. You're at that age when you want to do stuff you're told not to do, right? If you do that, you're going to end up with a baby." It was extremely unlikely that things would get to that point when we would only be dating for a month, but I made sure to listen to the grown-up's warning and stored it in my mind right next to the advice from Baron-san. After that, the nurse checked on my condition and told me I was free to go, so I set off home together with my new girlfriend. As we left school, Barato-san, and Ami-san didn't say much. Since I wasn't sure what I was supposed to talk about in times like these, the walk was awkwardly quiet. Even when I did say something, Nanami-san seemed distracted and a little spaced out, as if she were feeling feverish. Was something wrong? I regretted not having asked Baron-san how to come up with things to talk about in times like these. This was my first time ever walking back with a girl from school, so I couldn't help but feel nervous. Thinking about it, I realized Nanami-san was probably nervous as well. I'd been near silent so far, believing it would be better not to force her to talk to me, but then Nanami-san spoke up as if she'd made up her mind about something. "Hey, we should exchange contact info like phone numbers or usernames or something. Do you have an app that you use?" she asked. "Oh, right. I don't really use any, but I have some on my phone." "You have them, but you don't use them?" "I get news and free items for following official game accounts and that sort of thing." Nanami-san hit her mouth with her phone and laughed as if I'd said something funny. I became instantly doubtful, thinking that she might make fun of me, but instead, her next words surprised me. "Then I'm the first? First contact, that is. That makes me happy. What's with all these cute reactions?" I was thrown for a loop. Somewhat reassured, I exchanged contact info with her after asking her how to do it. A cute dolphin icon showed up in my app next to the name Nanami in her Garner characters. I'd never seen such a cute icon displayed on my app before. Still, I was surprised Nanami-san had asked to add me in the first place. I'd been sure she wouldn't share her contact details unless I'd been the one to mention it or she would give me the runaround to avoid adding me at all. To be perfectly honest, I'd thought she wouldn't be up for exchanging info at all since this whole thing was a dare. But was it my imagination, or did she seem oddly happy about this? I don't get women at all. If this is an act, she could easily make a living as an actress. After that, perhaps we'd broken the ice, since Nanarmi-san and I continued our conversation, albeit a little awkwardly. It didn't include any serious discussions, only us fumbling for what to say. I was, however, surprised to find I was enjoying the conversation. But of course, time flies when you're having fun. Before we knew it, it was time for us to go our separate ways. It seemed Nanarmi-san and I would be parting at the station, so even though we were walking home together, we wouldn't be together the whole way. "See you tomorrow, Nanarmi-san," I said, and she smiled back. "I'll see you tomorrow, Yashin," came her response as she waved goodbye. It was probably just my imagination, but she seemed a little sad, despite the smile. After that, I headed home by myself. I'm not sure why, maybe it was that expression of hers, but I felt a strange sense of loneliness as I traveled home, as usual. Until yesterday, everything had been fine. With my head swimming with surprise and confusion, I eventually arrived back home. From then on, it was the usual routine. My parents got back. We ate dinner. I changed and started up my game. It was business as usual. However, there was one thing that was different that day. Baron, so out with it. How'd the confession go? Come now, Kanin-kun, do share every detail with this middle-aged man. These were Baron-san's first words once I got settled in. I could tell just from the letters on the screen that Baron-san was all smiles and smirks behind that monitor of his. I mean, come on, you knew all along I was going to say yes. Saying that, I had told him I'd report back in return for all his advice. Besides, he had already promised to keep helping me out, so the least I could do was update him. So I accepted the confession as we'd planned, though a lot ended up happening in the meantime. Baron, a lot. Gosh, I'd love to hear specifics on the lot part. Of course you would. For the time being, I wrote out the day's happenings in the chat as I got down to playing my game. I went into detail on the whole story from when I saved her to when we walked home together. The only detail I kept to myself was the fact that she'd seen me shirtless. I didn't want anyone to think I'd been doing anything weird. Plus, I had nothing to be ashamed of. Hearing my report, Baron-san was beyond amused. Baron, well, that's high school for you. It must have been fate. Who else saves a damsel in distress right in the middle of a confession? Are you destined to become a superhero or something? No, I'm just your average introvert who likes gaming and working out. It was only by chance that I saved her. Canyon, I had a real tough time when we walked back together. At first we were completely silent. I didn't know what to talk about, which made me realize I should have asked you. Baron, I don't really approve of you relying on me for things like that, but in those situations, rather than talking about yourself, maybe it's better to ask her about things she likes. Canyon, but that's what I'm finding difficult. Even if I had tried to ask more about her on the way to the station, Nanarmi-san had seemed awfully quiet. At first, she had seemed distracted no matter what I'd said. What could I have asked when she was in such a state? My only hobbies were gaming and working out, which were both topics that would have bored her. I'd tried my hardest to spit something out, but we'd eventually reached the train station. Even that fumbling conversation had been kind of fun, though. Not knowing my state of mind, Baron-san continued his instruction. Baron, well, first you ask her about her hobbies. Then, once you've shown interest in learning more about her, you gradually expand on the topic of conversation. No matter what, though, don't make the mistake of only talking about herself. So I should ask about her hobbies. Come to think of it, I didn't really know anything about her aside from the whole dare thing. Perhaps I should take Baron-san's advice and start there. Canyon, but really, Baron-san, you sure know a lot about this stuff. You must have been really popular when you were in school. Baron, though, no. My wisdom is all straight from the internet, and I was in no way popular back then. Nowadays, as long as you look things up, the information's right at your fingertips. Isn't that convenient? Forget that I was impressed. You were just Googling it this whole time, saying that it was true, that the internet was overflowing with all kinds of information. Perhaps I should start looking things up too. Peach, there's no way this'll go well, Canyon said. You should break up with her before you get hurt. Peach-san was back, but from the message she'd sent, you could feel her resentment from the screen. All this opposition when it came to Nanami-san must have stemmed from her worry for me. While I appreciated her concern, I just couldn't bring myself to be the one to break up with Nanami-san at this point. Not only for her, but for me too. Becoming known as the guy who broke the heart of the angelic Nanami-san was a prospect too scary to think about. Canyon. Well, I've already gotten hurt by getting my head injured, so now I'd say I'm in the clear. Peach, you were injured? Peach-san was worried, despite my joke, so I added my explanation of how I'd been cut by a bucket and how Nanami-san had helped get me to the nurse's office. Baron, Kanir-kun, you risked your life to save her. I totally missed that. Are you all right? If your head took the brunt of it, you should probably get yourself to the hospital. Peach, no way, are you okay? Baron-san and Peach-san were worried for me in their own ways. I hadn't included the injury in my previous explanation, so Baron-san seemed a bit flustered. I wasn't feeling out of it and wasn't in pain anymore, so I told them I was okay, but they both reiterated that I should go to the hospital if I felt at all off. I think I'm fine, but now that they mention it, I am getting a little anxious. Maybe I should talk to my parents later. When I mentioned that to Baron-san and Peach-san, they reluctantly agreed. Really, I was grateful that they worried about me so much. Baron, well then, now that you've accepted the confession and you're going out with her, shall we set the goal for this week? Canon, goal? Baron-san was acting strange again. Just as I was asking myself what on earth he was talking about, he posted the answer in the chat. Baron, let's aim to have you hold hands with her by the end of the week. You're going out, so there's nothing strange about doing that. Oh, but don't force her, okay? You have to get her to say that she wants to hold hands with you. Holding hands with a girl, that was an unexpectedly high hurdle. I'd never done such a thing in my life. Geez, Hanyan, today we shook hands, so maybe that counts. Baron, no chance. Interlocking fingers might be too big of a hurdle, so let's start with holding hands to and from school. I guess that didn't count, huh? Still, the presented hurdle was already 120% too high. Holding hands to and from school was probably a situation that lots of guys could only dream of being in. But how was a guy like me supposed to earn that level of affection? I didn't have real-life friends who could teach me how to get girls to like me. It wasn't even possible to quantify the difficulty of courtship in the real world, and even if you could, those stats weren't visible. How many points did I need to earn the right to hold hands with her? I didn't have the slightest clue what to do. Baron, you're overthinking it. Let's make the deadline this Friday. Until then, you're going to work to get her to like you. I'll leave the method up to you. Canon, Friday. Today's Tuesday, so that's 3 days. Wait, not counting today, it's only 2 days. Isn't that too unreasonable? Besides, you have to tell me how I'm supposed to do it. Please don't leave it up to me. Just as I was about to type that in the chat, I received a well-timed message from Nanami-san. We had exchanged contact info, but thinking I wouldn't get a message from her on the very first day, I was completely unprepared and opened the message by accident. When I saw what she'd sent me, my eyes widened. Nanami, we're going out now, so let's walk to school together starting tomorrow. How does meeting at the train station at 7:30 sound? The second I opened it, the message was marked as read. If I'd just waited, I would have been able to ask for advice first. Panicking, I took my distress straight to Baron-san. Canon, Baron-san, we have a problem. I just got a message from her saying we should walk to school together tomorrow. What should I do? Baron, why is that a problem? Of course, that's a yes. Hurry up and respond. But don't be curt about it. Make it a text where you convey that you're looking forward to it. Go on, hurry. Baron-san's response was remarkably quick. A text that conveys that I'm looking forward to it. What kind of a message is that? I'm not a writer, damn it. How am I supposed to convey all that in a text? With the text still marked as read, I had to take a moment to craft my response. What if she thinks I'm ignoring her? No, no, I shouldn't be worrying myself like that. If I can't think of anything, I'll have to get straight to the point. Let's do this. Yashin, I'd be happy to walk with you to school. Nanarmi-san, 7:30's fine by me. I'm looking forward to it. My response felt extremely stiff, but that was the best I could do. I wasn't suave enough to write anything clever, but it contained my honest feelings. As I sat there, anxious about what she'd think, my message was immediately marked as read. Nanarmi-san's response came just as quickly. Nanarmi, I'm looking forward to it too. Her response was just that single simple sentence, but what could I say? I couldn't keep myself from smiling. It was the first time ever a girl had told me that she was looking forward to something we had planned together. Of course I couldn't help smiling. Canyon, Baron-san, we'll be meeting at 7:30 tomorrow at the station. What should I do? Baron, I'd like you to think for yourself a bit more, but well, let's see. If you're meeting her at 7:30, you'd better leave the house early so that you can be at the meeting place by 7:00. Wasn't that a little too early? As if responding to my question, Baron-san continued. Baron, arriving a little early is the way to go. It's much better than being late. Being late is top on the list of things you shouldn't do. Even if you didn't mean it that way, it would make it seem like you're not taking the other person seriously. Besides Baron-san paused dramatically before continuing. Baron, you want to see your lovely girlfriend as soon as possible, don't you? Lovely girlfriend, I knew. He was teasing me, but I could feel my face getting hot. Hearing it from someone else made me realize that Nanarmi-san really was my girlfriend. Even if it was just for 1 month, I couldn't help smiling at the thought of it. Baron, look, Canyon-kun, you need to get her to like you from here on out. So more than anything, you have to put her first. Don't worry about our game events. We'll hold your spot on the team for now so you can focus on developing your relationship with your girlfriend. Until now, I'd prioritized my games over everything. Would I really be able to change my priorities so suddenly? I wanted to continue playing since we were still in the middle of a campaign, not to mention that I didn't want to cause problems for my team by pulling out. I was grateful to Baron-san, but that didn't mean I wasn't remorseful. Baron, in an ideal world, your girlfriend would share in your hobbies so that you could play games together, but that's advice for another day. For now, you have to get to know her. Oh, and sure you'll be fine. They say the one who falls in love falls at the other's feet. If she does fall for you, I'm sure she'll want to play with you. That's true. If Nanarmi-san was willing to join in, I bet we'd have loads of fun. I tried to picture the scene for a moment, but my poor imagination couldn't quite conjure the image. Regardless, I decided it was best to leave the house a little earlier than usual, just as Baron-san had advised. Canon, I understand. I'll head out early tomorrow. That means I'm off to bed for the night. See you tomorrow. Baron, sure thing. Good night, buddy. Best of luck. Peach, be careful, Canon-san. Judging from the last message, Peach-san was still worried about me. I couldn't thank Baron-san or Peach-san enough, not that I could think of a good way to thank them. Anyway, I tried sending them my thankful vibes and headed to bed with thoughts filled with Nanarmi-san, whom I'd be meeting before school tomorrow. But tomorrow, I'm meeting up with Nanarmi-san. We'll be going to school together. I'll be going to school with my girlfriend, with Nanarmi-san. Nanarmi-san is my girlfriend. Lying in bed, I was unable to grasp the fact of the matter. I'd turned out my lights, but kept rereading the messages I'd received on my phone. In the end, I wasn't able to fall asleep. Well, I'm definitely going to be sleep-deprived tomorrow. Being so strangely excited, it took me nearly an hour longer to fall asleep than usual, prompting me to realize just how simple-minded I was. Interlude. Her feelings that day. I, Nanarmi Barato, confessed to a boy for the very first time, a boy in my class who was quiet and gentle, a boy who didn't stand out, a boy I'd never really spoken to before, whom I didn't even know that well. But the boy I confessed to, Yashin Mitsumai, was undoubtedly a kind boy. As long as the boy had been someone gentle, my confession could have been to anyone. When I say it like that, I sound like a random street attacker, but I was sure I must have seemed that way to him. After all, I hadn't confessed because I liked him. I'd confessed to him on a dare, That's right. A dare challenge where I was supposed to tell him I liked him and then go out with him for a month. It was the punishment I had to face for losing a game with my friends. A dare like this was the very worst act of toying with someone else's feelings. Somehow, though, I had ultimately decided to go through with it. I realize again this was the lowest of decisions. Hear me out, but this hadn't been my idea in the first place. My friends, Hatsumi Otafuke and Ayumi Camelnide, were the ones who dared me to do it. I'd been reluctant at first, but in the end I'd accepted the dare. If I think about it that way, I guess there was no point in making excuses. In the moment that I'd told them I'd do it, I had become just as guilty. You see, I knew I looked confident because of the way I dressed, and my clothes tended to be somewhat revealing, but for various reasons I had a hard time talking to guys. My friends had been the ones to help me build up my appearance like a wall, to protect my heart. In the end, it was a fragile barrier that wasn't much of a wall at all. But when I dressed like that and hung out with the two of them, I was able to interact with guys fairly normally. I think I'd even managed to become friends with a few of them. But my appearance wasn't enough for me to do that without them. I still couldn't be alone with a guy, at least not before that day. And precisely for that reason, my two friends were worried about me. It was fine for now, but I planned to go to college one day. Atsumi wanted to be a cosmetologist, and Ayumi a designer, so they were both studying hard, their hearts set on vocational schools. The three of us might have seemed brainless because of our looks, but our grades weren't even that bad. We were working just as hard as anyone else to achieve our dreams. But with us being on such different paths, the time would eventually come when my path would deviate from theirs. They were worried I'd go off to college and get tangled up with some weird guy while they weren't there looking out for me. In fact, Hatsumi and Ayumi were more worried about me than my own parents, and were sure to constantly remind me not to get strung along by some strange guy. That was probably why they'd suggested a dare this time around, so that I could get just a little bit more used to guys and keep myself safe in the future. My friends had probably chosen Yashin-kun because he seemed like the safest option. I'd never spoken to him personally, but it was true he was quiet and always alone. That considered, they weren't the only ones who believed he was harmless. And so, after a bit of a pep talk from my friends, I had plucked up the courage to confess to him. And I'd done it that very same day. Even though I knew how bad this was, I'd confessed to him out of my own selfishness. I truly was the worst. But dare or not, this was still my first confession. I'd been confessed to before, but never the other way around. The night before, I'd lain there unable to sleep, mumbling quietly to myself as my nerves tormented me. Tomorrow, I have to confess when the time had finally come. However, it wasn't my own nervousness that surprised me, but Yashin-kun himself. So many guys had confessed to me up till that point. The captain of the basketball team who couldn't keep his eyes off my chest, that guy with a bad boy complex who kept staring at my legs, that serious-looking guy with glasses who kept eyeing my bare arms. Not a single one had been looking at my face during their confession, and every single one had looked at me as if they'd been expecting something. But Yashin-kun was different. He had looked into my eyes, and only my eyes, not at any other part of my body. He had looked me in the eyes with seriousness. He'd done it for my sake. Faced with a reaction so different and so unexpected, I felt something other than nervousness. And the moment I finished confessing with all of my courage. "Come on, girl, this was only a dare!" Yashin-kun had come running toward me. In the blink of an eye he had pushed me to the ground and covered my body with his. So shocked by his behavior, how am I being attacked? He'd simply lain there unable to do anything. And at that moment I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Was he just the same as all the other guys before him, or maybe even worse? All of a sudden I'd become fearful that this guy would assault me. I'd screamed, but my legs had refused to move. All I could do was close my eyes and scream, unable to put up any meaningful resistance. But I'd quickly realized how wrong my perceptions had been. As I'd fallen to the ground, the sound of water splashing and the thud of a hard object rang in my ears, which was followed by a shock that reverberated through his body into mine. When I had opened my eyes in fear, wondering what had happened, I'd been met by the sight of Yashin-kun, soaking wet and bleeding from the head. His blood had dripped down onto my cheek and he'd smiled at me. Are you okay? Barato-san, are you hurt? Those very first words, spoken while he was sopping wet and injured, had expressed genuine concern for me, and immediately after that he'd collapsed. Not knowing what was happening, I was overwhelmed with confusion, but I soon realized he'd acted that way to protect me and felt ashamed for my earlier disappointment. I almost panicked, thinking he'd died because of me, but by some miracle he was still breathing. Without another thought, I got to my feet and ran for help. There was no way I could carry him by myself. As I ran, my breathing became heavier and my heart beat faster, but I couldn't tell if my quickened pulse was because I was running or because of Yashin-kun. When I finally reached the staff room, I called for a teacher and asked them to carry him to the infirmary. My heart kept pounding and my chest felt tight as I gazed at his unopening eyes. The school nurse freed Yashin-kun from his wet clothes, treated him swiftly, and laid him down on a bed. I could have cried when they told me that he was going to be all right. Then, after all that had happened, he sat up, instantly striking me dumb. After all, Yashin-kun was still shirtless. More than that, though, his physique was what caught me off guard. I thought he was quiet and scrawny, but that wasn't the case at all. In fact, he had a nicer body than I could have ever imagined. It was then that it finally hit me that he really was a boy, but the apprehension I usually felt about them wasn't an issue at all. And I was to soon learn that, more than any other guy I'd met before, this one was gentlemanly and kind. When he woke up and accepted my confession, I was overcome with joy and guilt. More than that, though, I was surprised at myself for feeling so happy that he'd said yes. Overcome with this sense of happiness, I suggested we call each other by our first names. Until then, I disliked the idea of a guy calling me Nanarmi. Them doing so had always seemed so uncomfortably intimate, but I couldn't help wanting to hear it from Yashin-kun. But that was all I could do. Beyond that, I couldn't say anything more to him. I didn't know whether it was from my growing sense of guilt or from feeling nervous about walking with him, but I couldn't find the words to talk to him on our way home together. Was he bored? I felt really bad about it. At the very end, when we were exchanging contact info, we said a word or two, though it was kind of awkward. But even that brief exchange made me so happy I was on cloud 9. Some time later, I got back home, whilst still in a daze. As I flopped on my bed, my thoughts suddenly hit me. He was so cool, Yashin-kun. Wait, why was I so flustered? Why was I talking to myself? Did I even have the right to do that? I flailed around on my bed, my mind filled with Yashin-kun, Yashin-kun, my boyfriend. In my heart, I didn't feel any discomfort about the thought of going out with a boy. That's right, starting tomorrow I was going to act like Yashin-kun's girlfriend. No, I was going to act like Yashin's girlfriend. I couldn't afford to commit any more blunders, or so I told myself with gusto. And in that moment, I suddenly caught myself. What was I getting so worked up for? This was all just a dare, one measly month of a relationship. But why, if that was the case, had I felt so sad when he'd said goodbye? I shook my head to dispel the niggling thoughts and took a moment to glance at my phone. It had been pinging with nonstop notifications since I'd got back, so it had to be my friends checking up on me. As expected, I found a stream of rapid-fire messages that I began to read through one by one. Atsumi, Tsuo, how was it? Did he say yes? Ayumi, and sure it went fine, right? But you've still got to tell us how it turned out. I looked at the messages and smiled bitterly, then sent them a simple response. Nanarmi, it went well. A lot happened, so I'll spill how it went tomorrow. I'm gonna go to sleep now, though. Night. With my reply sent, I left the conversation. They messaged me a few more times afterward, but the texts soon stopped, so they must have thought I'd fallen asleep. After that, I took a deep breath and tapped Yashin's icon in the messaging app. Seeing the name of the first boy I'd ever exchanged contact info with, I felt giddy. Was the character in his icon from some kind of anime? It was a female character with her hair in stylish braids. Did he like girls that looked like this? I twirled the ends of my hair around my fingertips. I didn't usually do anything fancy with it. I'd just tie it back or curl it into subtle waves, but that was because I had no one to show it off to. It seemed way too much of an effort otherwise. Sure, I knew how to do hairstyles like the one in Yashin's profile picture, but I'd never really tried it out on myself before. Maybe I should try braiding it, I mumbled to myself, unable to suppress my racing heartbeat. I impulsively sent him a message. Nanarmi, we're going out now, so let's walk to school together starting tomorrow. How does meeting at the train station at 7:30 sound? Did it not sound friendly enough? The second I thought that, the message was marked as read. I was happy he'd looked at my message so quickly, but at the same time I was anxious because he wasn't replying. Had I said something weird? Was he ignoring my text? Or was he just flustered because he didn't know how to talk to a girl? If he really was flustered, I felt we had something in common. Until a reply came, I waited for what felt like a very long time, even though it probably wasn't that long at all. Then it finally came. Yashin, I'd be happy to walk with you to school, Nanarmi-san. 7:30's fine by me. I'm looking forward to it. I jumped for joy just by seeing him say he'd be happy, and the bed I was lying on creaked. Why was he being so polite, though? I wondered for a moment before finally deciding that he must be unfamiliar with the situation. The more I thought about it, the more I found it to be adorable. Wait, adorable? What was I even thinking? I didn't know anything about this guy. I wasn't sure if these feelings were from what people called the suspension bridge effect, feeling more attracted to someone due to a dangerous situation, or if I really was beginning to like him. But if I was beginning to like him, I had to be the easiest girl in the world. Perhaps my friends were right to be worried about me now. No, I wasn't easy. Yashin was just a trial boyfriend, that's all. I wasn't easy, okay? These heart palpitations were clearly a result of the suspension bridge effect. I shook my head in denial, all while a mix of bewilderment, guilt, and a sliver of happiness swirled within me. But yeah, even though it is just an act, I'm still his girlfriend, so feeling like this must be allowed. Just as I told my friends, I decided to turn in early for the night. Then, with determination in my heart, I slid into bed. Tomorrow, I had to wake up earlier than usual. Tomorrow, I'm meeting up with Yashin. We'll be going to school together. I'll be going to school with my boyfriend, with Yashin. Yashin is my boyfriend. When I thought about it that way, I was suddenly struck by embarrassment. My heart pounding, I forced myself to close my eyes. Even though I was nervous, my fatigue soon overcame me. Slowly but surely, I sank into a deep sleep. I sunk and sunk until I was met with a dream. In my dreams, a shirtless Yashin kept appearing, and I woke up every time. This marked yet another night of restless sleep. However, I still managed to wake up in time to meet him, which was all thanks to the shirtless Yashin, or so I convinced myself. Chapter 2. Dating on a Dare. That morning, I was more sleep-deprived than usual. I tended to be somewhat sleep-deprived on a normal day, but today I'd lost sleep for a different reason. Today was the day I would meet up with a girl for the very first time. It wasn't my fault that had kept me from sleeping. Even if she had only asked me out on a dare, it was still my very first meet-up with my girlfriend. I couldn't help feeling like I was walking on air. Berenson had told me to get to the meeting place by 7, but actually, I was trying to get there even earlier than that. After my sleepless night, I'd ended up getting out of bed at the crack of dawn, making me early enough to catch the first train at 6:30 or so. It was so much earlier than usual that just looking at the time made me yawn. I'd left the house after telling my mother that I had some things to take care of at school, telling her I was meeting up with a girl. We've been way too embarrassing. At this rate, I was going to end up at our meeting spot an hour earlier than planned. Still, it was a lot better than being late, and I could just kill time by playing one of my games. Or at least that's what I'd told myself before I was thrown off by an unexpected situation. Shinanami-san was already there, at the meeting spot before me, despite me arriving a whole hour earlier than planned. Even just standing there alone, she seemed impossibly beautiful. There weren't that many people around yet, but all the men stole glances at her as they passed. Wait, had I gotten the time wrong? I thought I'd gotten up really early, but was I actually late? No, wait! My phone said 6:30, and she asked me to meet her at 7:30. I wasn't wrong, and space-time hadn't warped. The time was accurate. Why is she here so early? I was confused by the situation, but I didn't want to keep her waiting. Even Berenson had told me being late makes you seem like you're not taking the other person seriously. Granted, I wasn't late by any means, but since I'd already found her I couldn't keep her waiting. Feeling flustered at finding her there, I rushed to her side. When she saw me she shrank back for a moment, as if afraid of the figure approaching her, but when she realized that it was me she looked relieved and broke into a smile. And Nanami-san, sorry if I kept you waiting. I thought we were meeting at 7:30, but did I totally have that wrong? I wasn't used to calling such a pretty girl by her first name, but I had somehow managed to spit it out, albeit a little awkwardly. She continued smiling at me as she shook her head. No, you had it right. I just got here a little early, is all. Good morning, Yashin. Oh, good morning, Nanami-san. At least I'd gotten the time right. Nanami-san had told me she'd arrived a little early, but wasn't this a bit too early? She greeted me with a smile, and I greeted her back. Never in a million years had I dreamed I'd one day meet up with my girlfriend before school. She was wearing her usual school uniform with the shortened skirt, but she was carrying a slightly larger shoulder bag than the one she'd been carrying yesterday. At least, I thought I remembered her carrying a smaller bag yesterday, but maybe she liked to change things up according to her mood. This girl had confessed to me yesterday, right? Even if it was a dare. Even after the night I'd spent mulling it over when I looked at her, I couldn't quite believe it. This isn't a dream, is it? Fancy seeing you here so early. I mean, I know I'm early too, but I had something I had to do, so I immediately snapped back to reality. What should I do? Should I tell her the truth? I guess there's no point making up an excuse. Oh, sorry. It was my first time meeting up with a girl, so I was nervous and couldn't really sleep. I got here early. I'm glad I didn't have to keep you waiting. How is that it? Well, you don't have to worry about that. I guess we're getting to spend a little more time together because of it, so I'm glad. Despite her carefree manner, she was beaming from ear to ear. That smile of hers really confused me. It was in complete contrast with her casual tone. I mean, I was happy to see her too, but wouldn't she want to spend less time with the guy she'd only been dared to date? I don't understand women, I thought as I looked her over once more. Her large brown eyes grew round as she smiled, giving a soft impression. Each time she blinked her double lids. They gave the illusion of stars twinkling around the outside. She had a small mole under one of her eyes, which somehow looked rather sexy. There was no doubt in my mind that she was truly a beautiful girl. Her long, sleek hair looked black at first glance, but in the right light it glinted the same color as her eyes. It was only after this casual observation that I noticed her hairstyle was different from yesterday. Today, her long hair had braids in it. That's right, yesterday her hair had been flowing and straight, but today she was sporting braids. I had a strange feeling I'd seen the look somewhere before, but it suited her and was pretty. Come to think of it, Baron-san had said something about hair baron. Listen up, Canyon-kun. If there's even a slight change to her, make sure to compliment it. If your girlfriend really is the popular type, I'm sure she puts in a lot of effort. So rather than telling her she's pretty, compliment the one thing she's changed. If her hairstyle changes, say that it suits her, and so on and so forth. Canyon. Is that also straight from the internet? Baron, naturally. In fact, I'm the type who gets yelled at because I don't notice anything. It's not the sort of advice you can use at work anyway, since if I get it wrong it becomes sexual harassment. We'd better save it for your girlfriend, Buddy. Right. Even if his advice had been straight from the internet, compliments were important. There was no way I could compliment her change of bags, so I should at least compliment her hairstyle. Whether this would increase my favorability with her was yet to be seen. But no, wait, that doesn't matter. I should just give her a genuine compliment. There isn't anyone who isn't happy when they are complimented. Besides, I really do think she looks pretty. I should just tell it like it is. I noticed you braided your hair today, Nanami-san. They look good on you, and they look pretty suitable. Right. That was a fail. The word pretty presented far too high of a hurdle, and I just couldn't spit it out. I'd managed to tell her they suited her, but that was about my limit. Why was I such a loser? But it couldn't be helped. I mean, what's up with the minds of people who can go around calling girls pretty like it's nothing? I had better ask Baron-san when I got home later. Do they look okay? Oh, good. I'm glad. And so relieved. I was trying out this hairstyle for you. Yeah, it suits you, huh? For me, that's right. I mean, there's a girl with this hairstyle on your app icon, so I thought you'd like this sort of look. I felt a chill run down my spine. Shoot, I'd exchanged contact info with her, but I'd left my icon as a girl. Not only that, but it was a character from a game I liked. Was it sheer dumb luck that Nanami-san hadn't noticed the revealing outfit the character was wearing? I hadn't cared about the icon before now because I didn't have many contacts in the first place. If I'd known it was gonna turn out like this, I would have chosen somewhere safer to add her. Hey now, don't go looking all sad. Who cares about an anime icon? It's not that rare these days, is it? Even I go to watch anime movies and things like that. If you like it, what's the big deal? There was an angel before me, a Gyoru angel. She must have decided to copy the hairstyle to show me her understanding. I'd gotten ahead of myself in my desperation when she hadn't even cared in the first place. What a sweet girl. You like this hairstyle, right? Do you think it's cute? She asked, pinching a braid as she tilted her head. Was I really going to hesitate saying a simple word to a girl who'd gone through all that trouble for me? No, I couldn't do that. I may have been an introvert, but I still had my pride to uphold. I had to return courtesy with courtesy. I needed courage, but if I couldn't muster it up now, when would I ever be able to? That's right, Yashin. Just pretend this is an in-game chat. If it were, I'd write this about a character with no hesitation. Just think of this as an extension of that chat. Go on, say it. Yashin. Why, yeah, it's cute, Nanami-san. That hairstyle suits you, and it's really pretty. I said it. I actually said it. I said the words that bested me earlier. In my head, I was pumping my fist. But this test of courage has exhausted me greatly. I feel like I've used up a whole day's worth of stamina, and I must make haste to use a healing item to restore it. No. Wait. This isn't a game. Get your head out of the clouds, Yashin. When I returned, I was staring right at Nanami-san, who was blushing as she flashed me that flower-like smile that she'd given me yesterday. Maybe she was happy, since she seemed a little bit bashful. Wow, I don't even need a healing item. Just seeing her radiant smile has refilled my stamina to the max. But since hanging around here was pointless, we decided to head off to school together. As I was standing beside her, about to set off, Nanami-san extended her right hand toward me. H&H, she said. I said in return. I could understand neither the meaning of her action nor the accompanying verbalization. Oh wait, she's asking me to pay her girlfriend fee? Yeah, that must be it. She's done so much for me, of course there'd be a charge for it. I shouldn't expect that to be free to play. I wonder if the price is the same as doing a temple on a gacha game. No wait, stop confusing this with an online game. Besides, I really only play free-to-play games. I caught myself as I was rummaging around for my wallet, then glanced up to look Nanami-san in the eyes. When our gazes met, her cheeks flushed slightly, and she opened her mouth to speak. We're going out now, so let's hold hands on the way to school. Or do you not want to? I want to. That was a quick answer. What kind of guy would say no to that? Aware that she was watching me with her head slightly tilted, I hurried to grasp her right hand with my right one. Yet this would be a handshake, the thing we did yesterday. I moved too fast. Come on, get yourself together. Thankfully, she seemed to find my blunder funny, because she instantly burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. This is the same as yesterday's handshake. I don't think we can walk to school while shaking hands. Yeah, you're right, Tom. How about like this? It's my first time holding hands with a girl, so I don't really know how to go about it. I repositioned myself to hold her hand with my left one this time. Just like yesterday, her hand was very soft and small. It felt slightly colder today, but perhaps that was because she'd been waiting for me so early. This is kind of embarrassing, huh? She said. Her cheeks were flushed as she smiled at me. At least I knew that that wasn't just from the morning chill. At that moment, it finally dawned on me. I was holding hands with a girl. Just like that, my cheeks were as red as hers, and my mind raced away in a panic. What do I do, Baron-san? I've already met my goal for the week. I could only report in my head to Baron-san, instigator of my weekly goal. At this point, I still didn't know what my next goal would be. We walked hand in hand, got on the train, got off the train, and headed to school. It was the same path I always took, but holding hands with Nanarmi-sen made me look at everything from a different perspective. Truth be told, I was oblivious to what it meant to hold hands with her on the way to school. Well, no, I knew, but I was so worked up that I'd totally forgotten about it. Nanarmi-san had rejected all sorts of good-looking guys. She was so attractive that they just kept confessing to her. The sight of a girl like her holding hands with an introvert like me, who didn't even stand out at all, exposed us to all kinds of stares, whether they be from curiosity, shock, jealousy, or hatred. If only I'd switched on my brain, I would have remembered, but I couldn't let go of her hand now. At least it was still early enough that there were many other students around. But even then, some of them were watching us closely. Thankfully, no one came up to talk to us, but those who knew Nanarmi-san were whispering to each other. To be honest, I didn't feel all that good about it, but I decided it couldn't be helped. I glanced over at Nanarmi-san to see how she was faring, and as luck would have it, she seemed to be having fun. As expected of Nanarmi-san, I guess there'll be rumors about us. Huh. Taking the opportunity to tease me, she flashed me a pristine smile. Her pearly whites shone as clearly as they would in a movie, and totally unlike the day before. She kept talking to me the whole way. What do you do for fun? How do you spend your weekends? Have you dated anyone else before? Topic after topic flew at me as we walked, like I was being bombarded by a journalist firing questions from a machine gun. I knew Berenson had told me to be the one asking her questions, but that had all gone out the window. Still, I made up my mind that I couldn't possibly follow his advice in this situation and did my best to ramble off the requested information about myself. Nanarmi-san was an exceptional conversationalist. Every question she asked led on to the next. When she asked me about my hobbies and I told her I liked to play video games, she immediately deduced my icon character was from a game. She followed up by asking me whether I played that game on weekends too, admitting that she'd never really played any games before herself. I don't know how to describe it properly, but she had the extraordinary ability to string a conversation together by following up one question with the next. Perhaps this was what it truly meant to be a good listener lass. I was nothing like her. As a result of her skills, I'd ended up talking only about myself. It would be a shame if she thought that I was boring. At the very least, she seemed to be enjoying herself, so I'd like to think I'd made the right decision. Still, just thinking about the rumors that would start up about us, I felt immediately remorseful. Yeah, and there'll be rumors about you going out with someone like me. I feel really bad for you, Nanami-san. My comment was self-deprecating, but I couldn't help voicing it aloud. But the moment I did, she started pouting. What in the world? That's not the reaction I wanted, you know. We are going out, so it's totally fine. I was overcome by an urge to poke her puffed-out cheeks. What did she want me to say? Predicting that might be difficult to grasp until I get to know her a bit better as I mulled over the correct response, Nanami-san continued. From now on, I don't want to hear you say things like someone like me. You're my boyfriend now, and you saved me yesterday. You were the coolest. With that in mind, can we make this a relationship on an equal footing? Isn't this relationship based on a dare, though? Oh, I get it. An equal footing. That's her ideal kind of relationship. She's simulating that with me. I see. I understand. I understand everything. Yes, I hadn't made a mistake, even though I was about to. Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry, Nanami-san. She smiled back at me, but that smile had clouded over a little bit. Unlike her dazzling, flower-like smile from before, this one was tinged with sadness. I'm sorry, too. So why was she apologizing? Was it an apology for potential rumors, or was it an apology for only dating me because of a dare? If I told her I knew her secret, how would her expression change then? I was kind of curious to find out, but I firmly resisted the temptation to tell her. Instead, I poked her cheek with my index finger. That I couldn't resist. She looked at me with rounded eyes in response to my sudden action. I'd meant it as a joke, but I was just as startled by her surprise. Warwa. She stammered. Oh, sorry. It's just that you started apologizing even though you just said you wanted a relationship on an equal footing. Did that bother you? Sorry. And no, I was just kind of surprised. Yeah, surprised. That's it, that surprised face of hers was now beet red, and she didn't seem to know where to look. Apparently, I'd caught her off guard. Whoops. She remained silent for a few more minutes until we eventually arrived at school. It had all happened so fast. We finally let go of each other's hands so that we could change from our regular shoes into our inside ones. Since we'd arrived, I thought this was where the moment would end, but once we'd had our shoes on, she extended her hand again. You're suggesting we even hold hands during the short walk to the classroom? Really? Isn't it a little embarrassing? I asked. Who cares? It's morning, so it's not like there are many people around. Just a little bit longer. In defeat, I gave up and accepted her hand. The classroom was just as sparsely populated as the hallway, but the moment we entered, hushed voices filled the room. The only ones to remain silent were Nanami-san's two friends who were here awfully early again, weren't they? As the classroom stirred to life, the two of them walked up to us with smiles on their faces. What were their names again? Oh ho, Nanami, that's pretty bold, said the friend with long, straight hair totally different from Nanami-san's soft, fluffy hair. I never thought I'd see you holding hands with someone. Hey, Hatsumi. Yeah, I guess, Nanami-san responded, though Hatsumi-san seemed surprised at Nanami-san's behavior. Her tone was gentle and gave away a sense of relief. Nanami-san was smiling back at her shyly. Hatsumi-san was dressed like a Gyaru too, but a much different type from Nanami-san. Though her long black hair matched her dark eyes, it was littered with streaks of red. Her eyes were striking, and she had kind of aggressive beauty that reminded me of a carnivorous beast stalking its prey. Naturally, her skirt was short and her shirt was unbuttoned at the chest, but the parts of her body that the shirt exposed seemed very firm. She had her hands on her hips and was giving off formidable woman vibes. Congrats, Nanami, the other friend exclaimed. Thanks, Ayumi, Nanami-san replied. The girl with short hair and a laid-back smile, Ayumi-san, I think it was, clapped her hands like an innocent child. Congrats, Yashin, she said, flashing me a bright smile as she continued clapping. Her slightly wavy, light brown hair came to just above her shoulders. She was very petite, but the ampleness of her chest stood out on a girl of such short stature. A light chain dangled around her neck, but the pendant was caught in her cleavage, tucked away where the eye couldn't see. Only the slightest glint of what seemed to be a locket was peeking out. Ayumi-san struck me as someone inherently cutesy, with her laid-back smile and downturned eyes. If someone told me she was in a grade below, I probably would have believed them. With all three girls lined up, they made for quite the spectacle. They were three very different types of people, but they all looked as though they'd stepped out of a magazine. Nevertheless, they were reacting like they hadn't at all been the ones to suggest the dare. I'd expected more laughing and teasing from them. On the contrary, though, their congratulations seemed to be genuine. If these smiles really were part of an act, I would lose all faith in women. Yashin, can we borrow your girlfriend for a bit? We wanted to have some girl talk with Nanami. Oh, actually, do you want to join us too? No, that's all right. I wouldn't want to intrude. I'll see you later then, Nanami-san, I said. As I let go of her hand, I glimpsed a brief look of disappointment, but she was quickly whisked out of the classroom by her friends. Well, they were going to talk about the dare, so it would be difficult for them to do that with me listening in. The invitation had only been offered in anticipation of my refusal. With Nanami-san gone, I looked down at my empty hand where the warmth of her own seemed to linger. Still immersed in the moment, I opened and closed it, as if to hold on. I wonder if this is what it means to go out with someone who's out of your league for the time being, though I took a seat at my desk, put down my bag, and well, what should I do now? I glanced around the noisy room. I could already tell that the few people who'd been shooting us looks earlier were itching to start asking questions. It wouldn't be long before they surrounded me. I knew what they'd want to ask. I mean, what else would they ask about? If only I could figure out how to answer those questions, would I even survive until Nanami-san came back? Maybe that was the bigger issue here. Then the first person rose and walked to my seat, and then a second came, and then, one after another, Classmates whose names and faces I couldn't match up in my head crowded around me, loosing question after question at me like a stream of arrows. This was the first time in my life that I had been surrounded by so many people. The question they wanted an answer to was the same for every one of them. Why were you and Nanami-sen holding hands? There wasn't a single one of them that didn't want an answer to that question. Actually, of all of them, I was the one who most wanted to know the answer, but anyway, I answered them honestly. Nanami-san and I are going out now, so… No way! My words were interrupted by the eager listeners. After all that, they didn't believe me. Actually, no. It was more that they didn't want to believe me. After all, there was no way an introvert like me would be dating a girl like her. Oh shoot, that was the equivalent of saying someone like me again. Nanami-san had told me not to do that. Well, I guess it was too much to ask me to change at the drop of a hat. It would be best to take my time working on it. From that point until Nanami-san returned, I was bombarded by ceaseless questions. More and more students arrived as the morning drew on, and more came to surround me. Still, the gist of the questions remained the same. As I was fumbling to answer the questions, the crowd suddenly parted. It was like Moses parting the Red Sea. The crowd split right down the middle, and there I saw them. Nanami-san, Hatsumi-san, and Ayumi-san. Like a scene from a movie, the three friends strutted down the open path. I couldn't help but admire how cool they were. And when the trio stood before me, all eyes shifted from me to Nanami-san. Hey Nanami, why were you holding hands with Mitsumi? Is it some kind of a game? If you're messing around, excuse me. We were holding hands because I confessed to Yashin yesterday, and now we are going out. Isn't it normal to hold hands with your boyfriend? Every eye in the room grew wide at Nanami-san's straightforward response. The classroom, which had been noisy until then, now became wrapped in silence. My male classmates' eyes brimmed with hopelessness, and some even crumpled to their knees. The girls looked back and forth between me and Nanami-san with a look of disbelief on their faces. They hadn't believed a word I'd said, but when it came from Nanami-san, they gave way immediately. Wow, the kids at the top of the social caste truly were powerful. All right, scram. Hatsumi-san snapped. They've just started dating, so don't crowd them. That's right. Ayumi-san added. Leave them be, you guys. Though reluctantly, the class returned to their seats. I took this as an opportunity to apologize. Oh, thank you. Hatsumi-san and Ayumi-san was it. Nanami-san pouted and puffed out her cheeks. How cute. It's always so easy to tell when she's angry. No, wait. This is no time to get distracted. Was she upset about something I'd said? Why are you calling Hatsumi and Ayumi by their names from the get-go? You called me by my last name at the beginning. Oh, it's just Nanami-san was sulking. No, I just said the names I heard a minute ago. I didn't mean anything else by it. I don't know how to react when you sulk in such an adorable way. Bwa har. It can't be helped, Nanami. We've never talked with Mitsumi, so he probably doesn't know our names. I'm Hatsumi Audiobooks. Good to meet you, Mitsumi. And I'm Ayumi Kamonai. Fancy meeting you here, Nanami's boyfriend. She's right, Nanami-san. I didn't mean anything by it. It's nice to meet you, Audiobooks-san, Kamonai-san. Thanks for the help. By the way, as I thanked the two for coming to my rescue, I made sure to call them by their last names. Nanami-san's mood seemed to improve almost immediately as she stopped pouting and broke into a smile. It seems I was a little too careless. From now on, I'll have to be careful. At the very least, I should learn to match some names to some faces. As I came to my decision, Nanami-san took a deep breath, leaning closer to bring her face close to mine. Her sweet scent tickled my nose, and my heart began to beat faster. May I ask what you're doing for lunch today, Yashin? Lunch. I always eat in the cafeteria. I just buy sandwiches and stuff. Actually, I kinder made you something, Nanami-san said, hiding her face slightly as she mumbled. So if it's okay with you, I mean, if it's not too much trouble, do you want to eat together later? It was hard to think with the whole class staring at us like that, but I somehow managed to blurt out a response. That's no trouble at all. I'd love to. Now it finally made sense. so that's why she was carrying a bigger bag than yesterday. But isn't this all just a dare? Aren't you getting a bit too serious about this, Nanarmi-san? I mean, I was happy, very happy, in fact. But how should I put this? I was so surprised that my brain was having trouble processing everything fast enough. Eating lunch with your girlfriend. I'm sure every guy has fantasized about it at least once. I don't think that's any different whether you're an introvert or otherwise, not that I can say for sure. I, for one, an introvert through and through, had fantasized about it on multiple occasions. I was free to have whatever delusions I pleased. This particular delusion went something like this. The girl and I head up to the school rooftop, where we sit down together, just the two of us. She opens the bento box slowly, a little shyly, saying something about how she'd messed up. Contrary to her preface, though, the box is made up with a delicious-looking lunch that has been perfectly prepared. I eat it and tell her it's delicious, which makes her smile, and we spend a happy lunch hour together as we continue to chat. It was a run-of-the-mill fantasy. I'm sure any guys out there can probably understand what I mean, but I never even imagined that it would actually happen to me. I always thought my fantasy would remain just that. But it didn't remain a fantasy. My delusion was about to come true. What's more, the girl in that delusion was going to be Nanami-san. The girl who'd confessed to me on a dare had met up with me before school so that we could walk there together holding hands, and she had even gone out of her way to prepare lunch for me. Her commitment to the dare was next level. This was significant enough of an incident for me to think that. Still, maybe there was a chance that she liked me somewhat, even if that was a 1 in 10,000 chance. Actually, no. It would be less than that, but there was still a minuscule possibility. Yeah, right. Who was I kidding? I shouldn't get so full of myself. I couldn't even remember doing anything so far that would get her to like me like that. I hadn't done anything so far that would get her to like me like that. I had to think of this as Nanami-san's way of pursuing the image of an ideal girlfriend. Otherwise, I didn't think I could cope. The stares from those around us were already becoming too much to handle. The two of us were on the school rooftop during lunch break. The rooftop at our school was open and accessible, so it wasn't unusual to see people eating there, but there were quite a lot of people there today. It couldn't just be my imagination. It feels good to be up here when the weather's so nice. Oh, that bench is free. Should we eat there? Let's go, Yushin. Sounds good, Nanami-san. There's really no need to mention why so many people were there. They probably gathered to observe Nanami-san and me having lunch together. Even though there were a lot of people up there, there was an obvious lack of people immediately around the two of us. It was as if they'd all huddled around with us at the center to gaze at us from afar, creating a donut effect just like we'd learned about in class. This time, though, it was students moving to create the void we'd sat in rather than residents moving to the outskirts of a city. As a side note, Atafuke-san and Kamame-san weren't with us. The two girls had left, saying that they were going to eat lunch with their respective boyfriends. That is, they were sneaking off campus in order to do so. I'd heard that they'd been eating lunch with Nanami-san until yesterday, so this was certainly a sudden change in practice. But maybe doing so had been their way of protecting the insecure Nanami-san, though this did seem a little overprotective. Now it seemed that the role of protector had been passed down to me. The fact that they weren't here suggested as much. I was already feeling the pressure of having been entrusted with such a significant role. But more than that, the stares were starting to get to me. I could bear the curious looks from the girls, at the very least. Sure, they weren't pleasant, but they also weren't doing me any harm. In fact, the girls seemed more interested in Nanami-san than in me, in the sense that they were probably wondering why she had chosen me. If that were the case, then my concern was more out of my own self-consciousness. The problem was the stares from the guides. Their eyes directed a whole spectrum of emotions toward me: hatred, resentment, spite, jealousy, regret, and rage. Each stare was precisely what you would call a piercing look. Since I was with Nanami-san, they didn't seem likely to attack, but those eyes told me that they were ready to do so at any moment. If Nanami-san weren't here protecting me, they would have gone in for the kill for sure. Seeing as they say if looks could kill, I would like to make a statement. I feel like these looks are going to kill me. I'm starting to feel queasy. I wanted to scream at the guys around me to chill out. After all, Nanami-san was only doing this all for a dare, but since I couldn't do that, I just had to grin and bear it. What's wrong, Yashin? Get over here. Oblivious to my inner turmoil, Nanami-san had already taken a seat on the bench and was tapping the spot next to her. I guessed she was inviting me to sit there. I followed her lead and sat down beside her. In her hands were two small bento boxes, one of which she handed to me. "Is this what you woke up early for?" I asked nervously. "Yeah, it is. Oh, are you not good with homemade stuff?" "Oh, no, it's not that. I just meant it must have been a lot of trouble." I did my best," she said, blushing slightly. "A handmade bento that Nanami-san woke up early to make for me at wow." I was starting to feel like I could take on any stare sent my way. Maybe I was easily influenced or just too carefree, but either way, I was invincible in that moment, mentally speaking, of course. I actually wanted to surprise you at lunch, but Hasumi worried me by asking what I was going to do if you'd brought one yourself. I'm so glad you hadn't. It's still pretty unexpected. And flattered. Day to day, I received lunch money from my parents, so I usually bought a sandwich at the school store or ate in the cafeteria, but I hadn't spent my lunch money at all that day. Well, even if I had brought my own lunch, I definitely would have eaten this bento. I wasn't the type to eat a lot, but this wasn't really a problem. Nope, I would eat it even if I had to force myself. This bento was just that important. Hey, maybe you should open it instead of staring off into space. "Oh, yeah, sorry. You're right. I'm really grateful for this," I said. I opened the long-awaited bento box that she'd handed me. Turns out, Nanami-san wasn't actually the best at cooking, but I would make an effort to finish it anyway. Who am I kidding? The bento looked the bento looked amazing. Oh, I couldn't help but let my admiration escape me. This bento, the very first girl-made bento I'd seen, was how to put it. It looked so beautiful. It was almost too brilliant for me to handle. 3 adorably small rice balls, one wrapped in seaweed, another sprinkled with seasoning, were stunningly colorful despite being simple bowls of rice. The omelet, not burnt but a beautiful yellow, was shining before me like gold. The main dish consisted of 4 pieces of fried chicken, vividly decorated with lettuce and cherry tomatoes. I placed the opened bento slowly and cautiously on the bench. Nanami-san tilted her head as she watched, but without hesitation, I took out my phone to take pictures. I took a bunch of photos in rapid succession, each from a different angle. "Hey, wait, what are you doing?" "Well, I can't eat such a work of art without keeping a record. It looks way too good for that." Even though I didn't usually take pictures of my meals, I was overcome by a sense of duty to capture this one. Besides, this was my all-important first bento. Unaffected by Nanami-san's bewilderment, I took a dozen or so photos and then, finally satisfied, I brought my hands together to express my gratitude toward Nanami-san and her delicious offerings. "Thank you for the food," I said. "Bon appetit," Nanami-san replied embarrassedly, a slight blush tinting her cheeks. Somehow that made me happy. The softly shaped rice, made up of firm grains, melted inside my mouth. The omelet, neither too firm nor too soft, was slightly sweet, just the way I liked it. The batter on the chicken was still crispy despite having cooled, and its rich seasoning complemented the rice balls perfectly. I couldn't stop eating. In other words, everything was delicious. I was completely engrossed in eating, but thinking it was best to say something, I picked up a second rice ball. "These rice balls are pretty small, yet you still managed to make them perfectly round," I said. "Thanks. My hands are so small, they end up that size no matter what I try." Did I make enough? As she spoke, Nanami-san waved her hands at me, making me acutely aware of the fact that those slender fingers had shaped the rice in my mouth. It was a dangerous thought. So many things were already dangerous. I couldn't say precisely what, but they were dangerous. "That's right. They're rice balls. Of course you make them with your hands." Although my confusion had me at a loss for words, I continued savoring the handmade bento. Whether because I was solely focused on eating it, or because the bento box was on the small side, I ended up finishing it in no time at all. "Thanks for the meal. It was delicious." "You're very welcome." Seeing that Nanami-san still seemed to be eating, I immediately regretted wolfing it down so fast. "You're a good cook, Nanami-san," I said. "Making box lunches is basically my job at home, so today I just made one extra without telling my family." I wondered if both her parents work like my parents do. Helping them out like this is really admirable. Just as that thought had crossed my mind, my stomach growled. The noise was quiet, but loud enough for Nanami-san to hear. At the sound, my face turned red, while her face drained of blood entirely. "I am sorry," she cried. "Of course you're a boy, so my extra bento box wouldn't be enough food for you, right? Geez, I should have thought more. My stupid stomach. Why couldn't you hold out a bit longer? A real man's stomach would wait until we're alone." It was true, though. Sure, I wasn't a glutton, but the amount of food just wasn't enough. I'd begun to wonder whether to top it up with a sandwich from the school store, but because of my spineless stomach, I'd embarrassed her. "I'm so sorry. I still have some of mine left. Here, take some." As I was reprimanding my stomach, Nanami-san held out a piece of chicken with her chopsticks. What is the meaning of this? Does she really want me to open my mouth and say "R"? I've seen this happen plenty of times in manga, so I'm pretty sure I'm right. Realizing what she was offering, Nanami-san turned red, but she didn't withdraw her chopsticks. In fact, she held them out toward me with even greater resolve. The noise surrounding us disappeared as those around us held their breaths. There's no way I was just imagining it. Shaking slightly, I decided I couldn't keep her waiting, so I hastily accepted the chicken with my mouth. I couldn't even taste it because of how nervous I was, but it was probably even tastier than before. There was no way it wouldn't be. "Stomach, you've done well." My palm was moving in circles like a drill on my stomach, but it wasn't a problem. "You did a good deed, so I should praise you." Nanami-san pulled back her chopsticks and continued eating her bento quietly. "When I'm with Hatsumi and Ayumi, we feed each other like that all the time, so why is that right?" For a good while after that, we were too embarrassed to continue our conversation. Only once she and I had stopped blushing and our faces had returned to their usual color did we manage to speak again. During that conversation, I admitted openly and honestly that the food wasn't quite enough for me, rather than having my stomach give me away again. I had been satiated in various ways up till that point, but it was true that I wanted to eat a bit more. "In that case, why don't we go buy a bigger bento box for you on our way home?" Caught by surprise, my brain stopped working. "You mean you're willing to make lunch for me again tomorrow?" "That's what I was planning, but is that okay?" "More than okay. I would be extremely grateful for such kindness." The strange string of words fell out of my mouth because I was so worked up, but Nanami-san simply smiled, holding a hand to her chest in relief. "I'm glad," she said. "God, now I'll have no regrets if I die here. The apex of my life is probably this very moment. These stairs may kill me, but who cares? I'll never encounter happiness greater than this." Nanami-san smiled shyly, her cheeks flushed and her head tilted as she whispered, "It's a date." Thought I'd take that back. I'll continue living no matter what. As the stares of murderous intent intensified, I sat there determined to make it through this. A day after school, Nanami-san and I made our way to a shop that carried a variety of home goods. The purpose of our visit, of course, was to buy me a larger bento box. Perhaps because of my resolve at lunchtime, I had somehow made it through the day. It wasn't like anyone had physically attacked me, but the hostility directed at me was weapon enough. Honestly, the thought of going to school tomorrow was making me feel pretty despondent. "What's wrong, Yashin? You look kind of down." "Oh, it's nothing, Nanami-san." "Are you sure? Oh, did you not want to hold hands?" "I feel really bad." No, that's not it at all. Being able to hold hands with you, makes me happy." Nanami-san had spoken with a look of worry on her face, but hearing my response, she perked up again. Just like that, the dark cloud hanging over tomorrow dissipated. Feeling the warmth of her hand in mine, I was filled with a new sense of optimism. Tomorrow, I would get to eat another of Nanami-san's homemade bento. True, she was also the cause of my anxiety, but I wasn't going to think about that for now. From then on, we began picking out our bento box. As we looked around, chatting about this and that, I couldn't help but daydream we were just like a newlywed couple. It was then that Nanarmi-san smiled at me. We must look like newlyweds. It's funny, right? My joy at learning she was thinking the same thing as I was, along with seeing her embarrassed face, absolutely destroyed me. I seriously think I'm gonna die. Thank heavens. I was just thinking the same thing, I replied in almost a whisper. Flustered, Nanarmi-sen turned crimson and slapped me on the back several times. What a pleasant pain. No, I'm not a masochist. I'm just really happy, like every single thing she does fills me with joy. As we flirted with each other, I realized just how much my thinking had changed in a way that I never would have thought. But right at that moment, as we finished selecting a bento box, a brand new problem arose. Okay, I'll go buy this one then, Nanami-san said, starting off toward the checkout line. I immediately panicked and stopped her. I could buy my own bento box. What kind of a boyfriend would make his girlfriend buy his lunchbox when she was already making him lunch? Even I knew that that wouldn't fly. It would make me seem like I was only there to take advantage of her financially. Hell, I still wanted to pay for the ingredients for today's lunch, but when I offered, Nanami-san shook her head, firmly insisting that she had made it for me because she wanted to. Since that was the case, I told her I'd buy the box myself. I mean, that was the least I could do. But even though my offer was totally normal, her face brightened when I handed her the box. It feels like a present, she said, holding the box like a treasure. A more attractive guy than myself would have offered up a smooth response, but unfortunately, that wasn't possible for me. I'll be in your care, was all I could say as I bowed my head. She didn't seem to mind even that. Leave it to me, she replied, smiling brightly. Why is she being so good to me? What does that smile even mean? On our way home from the store, Nanami-san asked what I wanted for tomorrow's lunch. Honestly, I'd be happy with anything Nanami-san made, but saying so wouldn't have been the most helpful answer. Instead, I went ahead and requested the first thing that popped into my head. Hamburger steak. Hamburger steak, got it. Oh, can you eat bell peppers? Sure, I can eat pretty much anything as long as there are no really strong herbs like cilantro. I can't do cilantro either, but I kinder wish you'd said you could eat anything as long as I made it. I see, so that's how I was supposed to respond. I've learned something. Seeing her smile, I repeated the phrase back to her knowing I was too late, but she laughed out loud at me anyway. Well, I guess it was fine as long as she found it funny. We walked together as we talked. Of course, we were still holding hands. I felt like I was able to talk a little more smoothly than the day before, and I was enjoying myself, despite the nerves. When we finally arrived at the train station, we let go of each other's hand, and Nanami-san told me she'd call me that night. Unable to think of anything smart in return, I nodded in affirmation, but deep down I wanted to kick myself. Welp, it can't be helped. In moments like these, when I least expect it, I can't help but remember. After all, she's only going out with me because it's a dare. Canon. So yeah, that's what happened today. Once I got back, I gave a full report of the day's events to Baron-san. I'd overtaken the chat, but he listened to me until the end without interrupting me once. Baron. Wait, you're sounding all negative there, but doesn't it seem like the dare doesn't really mean anything to her at this point? She's totally into you. Baron-san may have listened to me until the end, but his response seemed to suggest that my air turmoil was utterly meaningless. Of course, I told him that what he was saying was ridiculous. Baron, I mean, you already cleared the whole holding hands thing, which I thought would be impossible for you. Then she made you lunch all by herself and even fed it to you from her own chopsticks. I mean, she just confessed to you yesterday, right? What kind of pacing is that? It's just not normal. Wait a minute. You thought I couldn't make it. Well, it's best not to dwell on that. I'm getting free advice from him after all, so I should just take it to mean he was setting high expectations. Canyon. No, she's dating me to get comfortable around guys, so she's probably just treating me as her test dummy. Baron. But with this being a dare, I thought she'd be more administrative, or that she might even say something like, I'm doing you a favor by going out with you, so don't get cocky and don't talk to me at school or something. Canyon. She's not like that. Of course, Baron-san didn't mean any harm by what he'd said, but I just couldn't help objecting. Hearing someone say such negative things about Nanami-san even if they were just presumptions, had irked me. It was unlike me to be so defensive, but I just wasn't mature enough to handle it. I'm pretty sure my annoyance was undetectable over chat, though. Baron. At any rate, as for her current behavior, there are probably a few possibilities. Possibility 1. She's a devilish type who finds pleasure in toying with men. What would you call that? A femme fatale? Canyon. I don't think that's the case. When they were deciding on the dare, her friends said she wasn't used to being around guys. That was precisely why the apparently no libido and celibate type had been chosen. Besides, if she were that type of person, she wouldn't have rejected all those handsome guys who'd approached her before and instead would have proactively dated them. In terms of possibility 1, I could say there wasn't the slightest chance. Baron. Possibility 2. Since the time limit of your relationship has already been set, there's no worry about having you dislike her, so she's trying out her ideal image of what a girlfriend should be. I see that was Nanami-san acting as the perfect girlfriend. I had thought it was strange that she was so assertive when she wasn't used to guys, but if she had been making an effort to act out a part, then it all made sense. But if that really was an act, women sure are scary. I've thought this before, but she could probably make a living as an actress. She's beautiful, she's cute, she's stylish, and she's nice. Wait, did I mention she's cute? Baron. Possibility 3. Since you saved her on the day of the confession, she's already smitten with you. Canyon. That's the least likely of all the options. I mean, all I did was cover her so that she wouldn't get drenched in water. Is falling for someone because of that even possible? I wish he'd stop calling it that. Besides, anyone could have done what I did. Would you fall for someone just for that? Though I guess I'm not in any position to say anything, given that I was totally at her mercy all day today. But still, as a motive to like me, I can't quite believe it. Baron. Possibility 4. You were actually reincarnated into this world, and you have the cheat ability of making women who confess to you smitten with you. Canyon. Don't you think that ability's a bit too specific? If a woman confessed to you, they would usually already be smitten with you at that point, so it was a meaningless ability that you wouldn't even notice. Baron-san had sure come up with a weird punchline. Baron. Well, I think possibility 3 is the most likely. Peach. I think it's the first one. You should break up with her before she hurts you. No sooner had Peach-san entered the conversation than she was gone again. She sure was tough on Nanami-san. She probably just couldn't stand to watch someone being toyed with. If anything, I would say she had a strong sense of justice. Canyon. Out of those, I'd say it's probably the second option. I'm probably just a practice run, so she doesn't have to worry about me disliking her. She can try different things and act however she wants without worrying about other people. Baron. Well, whichever it is doesn't really change what you do from now on. Canyon. That's true. A moment ago, Peach-san had advised me to end the relationship immediately. She'd probably said that to protect me, but in terms of toying with people, I was probably no better than Nanami-san. Even if I get her to like me during this dare, then what? Baron. So, after she made you bento, did you do anything to thank her, Canyon-kun? Canyon. Oh, well, I did thank her, but I haven't really done anything in return. As I was sitting there thinking about what I should do, Baron-san revisited the day's events. That's right. She made me a bento and fed me the fried chicken, yet all I could do was to say thank you. She refused money for the ingredients, so there was no way for me to thank her properly. When I told him that, Baron-san responded in exasperation. Baron, money for ingredients? Look, you're not dealing with a bento shop here. You've got to give her sweets or something, or thank her in a more thoughtful way. Oh, I see, that was an option. I didn't even think of it. Or rather, I was so worked up that the thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Well, no. We walked home together, so there were plenty of opportunities. By bad, Canyon. True. I know it's bad to realize that now, but from tomorrow I'll Baron. Oh, wait, Canyon-kun. Since you didn't really do anything today, I've thought of your next mission. That mission is to ask her out on a date. Canyon. A date? I immediately began to panic. Asking Nanami-san out on a date was a tall order, so tall that I was sure I couldn't do it, and yet this was the task he was entrusting to me. Earlier, Nanami-san had called that day's outing a date, which had been fine as an extension of walking home together. but to invite her out on a date myself, this was a whole new level of difficulty. Baron, there's no need to think too hard about it. She asked for an equal relationship, right? So, in return for the bento, you have to reciprocate accordingly. You should go see a movie this Saturday or something. That's pretty standard. A movie date? What was he talking about? I was pretty sure I couldn't do it, but Baron Sam was telling me to regardless. Just how difficult did he want to make things? Baron, though it might sound a little old-fashioned, it'll be best if you pay for the date. If you say it's to thank her for making you lunch, she'll probably accept right away. You still get lunch money from your parents, so if you save that up, you'll be fine, right? Nanami-san had said that she would make lunch for me every day from now on. I felt bad about just accepting that, which felt like a far cry from a relationship on an equal footing. In order to continue going out with her, I would have to reciprocate appropriately, or else I would be forever in her debt. At the end of the day, our relationship was based on a dare, so I had to keep things equal between us. No matter what happened from here on out, no matter the outcome, I wanted to be sincere until then. Baron, you talked too much about yourself today. That probably just means she's a good conversationalist, but starting tomorrow, it'll be good for you to learn more about her. Tried asking her what kinds of movies and things she likes. Canyon, that seems like quite a hurdle, but I'll do my best. Even though Baron-san couldn't see it, I clenched my fist as I made up my mind. Baron, once you decide what movie to watch, reserve the tickets in advance. Trying to buy them on the day will make things way too hectic, and she might offer to pay for her own half. If you do so ahead of time, that won't happen. Canyon, thank you so much for everything. By the way, is that information also from Baron? Of course, I got it straight from the internet. It seems like the smooth thing to do for a movie date. You can do the same thing when you're settling the bill for lunch by paying for it quickly when you leave your table for something. Regardless of where the information came from, it was decent enough advice to keep in mind. Baron, mind you, what's important here is that you're the one to ask her out. You can't always just wait and see where the moment takes you. You have to take the reins and show her just how interested you are in her. Otherwise, she'll never properly like you. That said, I think she already likes you a ton. I appreciated the advice, but I couldn't quite agree with that last point, though that probably had more to do with my insufficient confidence. Canyon, thanks, Baron-san. Baron, not at all. I hope it works out for you. And Canyon-kun, although it's important to have her like you, you should make an effort to like her too. If you can continue dating as someone who didn't have a decent time as a student myself, I would be very happy for you. Canyon, yes, I understand. I'll work hard to like her too. Although I'd told Baron-san that I'd work hard, I was already doing fine on that front. After all, in just one day, even knowing that this was a dare, I was already starting to like her. Well, no. If I'm completely honest, I already liked her a ton. I at least had that much self-awareness. I'm so easy. Maybe it can't be helped as a teenage boy. Just then, my thoughts were interrupted by my phone receiving a message. The sender was Nanami-san, and the message was a single sentence. Nanami, is it okay if I call you now? The moment I read it, my earlier resolve was blown away, and I was struck by a sense of panic. Canyon, what should I do, Baron-san? She asked if she could call me. What am I supposed to do? Baron, cool it, Canyon-kun. She told you she'd call you, so of course she would. Don't worry about the chat, and go ahead and talk to her. Just keep cool, okay? Having been reminded by Baron-san, I remembered that she had in fact told me she'd call me. Perhaps I should have been the one to contact her first, but it was too late now that she'd beat me to it. I'd have to build on that lesson for next time. For the time being, I paused for a beat and then replied, Yoshin, sure, that'd be great. I'll call you. Once I saw that the message had been read, I gave her a call. She picked up on the very first ring. Hi, Yoshin. Sorry it's so late. I meant to call earlier, but I got caught up in a long conversation with Hasumi and Ayumi. What were you up to? Playing a game? Yeah, I was. Gaming and working out are about the only hobbies I have, really. I couldn't very well tell her that I had been discussing tomorrow's plans with Baron Sam while playing, so I tried my best to be honest about my hobbies. I couldn't come up with any interesting topics of conversation, so that was the most I could say. However, despite the fact that this wasn't my first time talking on my phone, I was nervous because I was talking with Nanami-san. My heart was pounding as she seemed to speak directly into my ear. Even her voice was pretty. Just having my phone up to my ear made it feel like I was somewhere else with her. Working out, huh? You're surprisingly fit. Why don't you join a sports club? Not that I do any sports either, but I'm just not good at athletic stuff. For now, it's enough to watch videos and figure it out myself. I don't dislike exercise or anything, so I end up lifting weights a lot. Har, I know what you mean. They're pretty quiet, so you don't seem like the jock type. Her laughter rang comfortably in my ear. Wait, no. How have I ended up talking about myself again? I have to ask her more about herself. The topic she'd mentioned earlier was so. What were you talking about with Otafuke-san and Kamonai-san? Oh, I asked them whether I was weird at all yesterday. Like, was I annoying? Had I bothered you? It's, my first time going out with a guy, so I had the two of them grade me, and we talked about some other things too. If I had had to answer, I'd have said she'd acted weird from beginning to end. Though for me, that wasn't in a bad way, but rather in a very good way. The girl who'd rejected countless good-looking guys had shown up to school holding hands with me, so if you couldn't call that weird, what could you call it? But what did she mean by other things? Had they perhaps been talking about the dare? I didn't know for certain what it was they'd discussed, but she seemed reluctant to tell me. Still, her voice on the phone sounded a little uneasy. Telling her that she'd acted weird earlier would probably only make her more anxious. So, instead, I decided to share with her the good parts. I'd never held hands with a girl before, much less gone out with one. It was my first time receiving the handmade bento too. It was a day filled with loads of new experiences, but everyone made me happy. These were my honest thoughts from the bottom of my heart. In just one day, enough had happened to completely reshuffle my list of things that made my high school life a happy one. Until now, I'd focused on things like getting the character I wanted in my game or ranking up, but today had been such a parade of fun that it made such things pale in comparison. Really, it's just that you seem so strangely calm. You keep such a low profile at school and all, but you have to be more experienced with girls than you're letting on. Am I really your first girlfriend? You can tell me you know. That's only because I got loads of advice from Baron-san beforehand, not because I wasn't nervous. But apparently, to her, I had seemed cool and collected. You even showed up at exactly the same time as me, that first day. I was totally prepared to wait a long time. That really was just a coincidence. I couldn't sleep a wink, honestly. Was it also just a coincidence that you noticed I changed my hairstyle? That, too, had been a coincidence. If I hadn't gotten advice from Baron-san, I probably wouldn't have even noticed, and even if I had, I probably wouldn't have been able to bring myself to tell her that it was cute. Well, the only reason I had been able to say that was because she prompted me to, but anyway, yeah, that too. I couldn't even bring myself to tell you it was cute until you mentioned it. Remember, that's how much of a dummy I am. Even now, I'm nervous about talking to a girl on the phone. Wait. Did I force you to say that it was cute? Oh, no. I really did mean what I said. It's just that saying that out loud was also a first for me, so I felt kind of embarrassed about it. Har, I see. So you really did mean it. Oh, you actually thought it was cute then. Thanks. The soft whisper of her voice lingered in my ear, and our conversation paused for a moment. Shoot, where should I go from here? No, wait. Baron-san told me to ask more about her. Anything is fine. Anything be brave. Yashin, I told you my hobbies were gaming and working out. But what are your hobbies? Nanami-san, my hobbies. There's reading, watching movies, eating good fujo, and going shopping. They're pretty mundane hobbies, I guess. Movies. She said movies. Going to the movies was my mission from Baron-san. I only really watched anime movies or tokusatsu films with heavy special effects, so I wasn't terribly familiar with normal films. This was finally my chance to get to know her taste in movies. You can do it. Yashin. Movies, I don't watch that many movies, but what kinds do you like? Let's see, I like action movies, romantic movies, but I'm not very good with sad stories or horror. I like movies with happy endings. Do you like anime movies? Yashin, like movies with characters liking your icon. She got me. Now that she mentioned it, I'd totally forgotten to change my icon. Her tone toward the end sounded a little bit teasing, but it didn't feel malicious. Perhaps it even felt kind of nice to have her tease me like that. Yeah, I like anime movies. You watch them too, right? You really do respond like you're super calm. I was kind of hoping to hear you get a little more flustered. Oh well, I guess that's just something I'll have to look forward to. That hadn't been me responding calmly, but rather me simply giving up, but it seemed that to her I sounded calm. Since you like movies, Nanami-san, can I ask what kinds of movies are out right now? I don't really know much about them. Well, a little while ago, I wanted to see the latest movie based on an American comic book, but I've changed my mind since then and decided I actually want to see this new romance film that everyone's been talking about. I heard there are some adult scenes in it though, so I've been avoiding it. Then, this Saturday, do you want to go see it together? Yeah, actually, I wanted to say ha to myself at that moment. What did I just say? Why am I inviting her now? And from the flow of that conversation, I had just painted myself as the guy who wants to go see a movie that has some naughty love scenes. Nanami-sen grew silent at the words that had popped out of my mouth on reflex. I had no choice but to say something. No, don't get me wrong. It's not that I want to go to watch something indecent with you. It's just, you said you'd make more lunches for me, right? So I just thought as thanks, it'd be nice if you'd let me treat you to a movie. So, I don't have any ulterior motives, okay? Nanami-sen? Hey, are you listening? Are you there? The only response she gave to my excuses was total silence. At that, I started to panic a little, no, a lot. We'd only been dating for a day. Had I already screwed up? As I was beginning to sink into a pit of hopelessness, I heard her laugh over the phone. PFFT har 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 har. I finally got to hear you all flustered. Yeah, I like you better this way than when you're all composed. How cute. It's okay, I know. It's just Nanami-san lowered her voice and continued softly, sounding apologetic. It's just that I promised Hasumi and Ayumi that I'd go to see that movie with them this Saturday. If I knew you were going to ask, I would have called you first. Hearing the sadness in her voice, I realized my plan had failed. Of course, if she was going to watch it with her girlfriends, then that couldn't be helped. It was natural to prioritize prior engagements. Actually, no. Even Baron-san had told me that the important thing was that I be the one to ask her out on a date myself. What was I doing? Giving up so fast. There was only one thing left to do. Sunday. Are you free on Sunday? If you are, would you like to go on a movie date with me on Sunday? Of course, I'll pay for everything, since this is to thank you for the bento. And I'll look up movies you might like. So would you like to go watch a movie with me? Out of sheer excitement and haste, I'd switched back to speaking to her politely, and I was once again greeted with silence. If she rejected me again, I would probably be very, very bummed. I would probably be so bummed that I would be depressed for 3 full days, no, maybe a week. That was just how much courage I'd had to muster to ask her out. Sunday was the final day for the in-game tournament. It was the most exciting day of the event, but I was choosing Nanami-san over that. After a long silence, Nanami-san finally spoke. The date is to thank me for the bento, right? Yes, of course. So tomorrow? Please tell me all about your favorite genres and movies. If that's the case, she said slowly, I'll have to put even more of an effort into your lunches starting tomorrow. I'll make them so good that you'll want to thank me for every one of them. You mean yes. On Sunday, let's go on a date. I had to resist the urge to scream into my phone and instead answered, yes, let's. Extremely enthusiastically. In that moment, I probably had the creepiest smile on my face, accompanied by the creepiest of body movements to express the joy of my entire being. It was a relief that she wasn't able to see me. Well, it's time for me to head off to bed, she said, calling it a night. Good night, Yashin. Good night, Nanami-san. With the phone hung up, I started up my chat app with Baron-san and company. Everyone present had been writing predictions about my conversation with Nanami-san, but I ignored them to send a direct message to Baron-san. Canyon. Baron-san, talking with a girl at night is amazing. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get any sleep. Baron, what in the world did you talk about? You really should take this opportunity to get your act together. Canyon, oh, you know that movie? We'll be going on Sunday instead of Saturday, so I won't be able to join the event that day. I'm sorry. Baron, oh, that's totally fine. Say what? You already asked her out. I know I was the one who suggested the whole thing, but aren't things moving too fast? Are you okay? You're not pushing yourself too hard, are you? Oh, most definitely, but I have no regrets. Cannon, it's okay. I successfully asked her out. I did it, Baron Sen. I manned up and took control. Baron, I'm right. You seem awfully excitable right now. Don't tell me you asked her out on the spur of the moment. Cannon, what are you talking about? I'm perfectly chill. I'm going to work hard for this date on Sunday. Baron, of right. Take it easy there. In contrast to Baron Sen's bewilderment, my own mood was soaring with excitement. Looks like I wouldn't be getting any sleep again after all. Interlude. Her change good night, Nanarmi-san. With Yashin's words ringing comfortably in my ear, I sat there ruminating on them. This wasn't my first time talking to a boy, and though I didn't exactly enjoy doing it, talking with Yashin made my heart flutter. It was as if he were speaking directly into my ear. The telephone was a pretty amazing invention. I didn't know who'd invented it, neither their name nor what they looked like, but I owed whoever it was my gratitude. Come to think of it, this was my first time talking with a guy in private, and so late at night in my room to boot. Oh my God, seriously? This is too much. I flopped face down on my bed and began wildly kicking my feet. It didn't really help with anything, but I was too worked up to relax. No, this was no good. I just couldn't control my feelings. I was restless. My head felt all fuzzy, and I felt dazed, as if I had a fever. I can't stand up to Hasumi and Ayumi if I'm like this from the get-go. The day had been a string of unbelievable events. In the morning, when I'd arrived at our meeting spot super early and begun thinking about how to kill time, Yashin had found me right away. Not only that, but he had noticed my new hairstyle and told me it was pretty, even if he'd said it somewhat embarrassedly. I couldn't help but think he was the cute one for getting so flustered over something so small. Flattered by his comment, I'd gotten ahead of myself and thoughtlessly suggested we hold hands. Inside, I'd immediately started panicking, asking myself why I'd gone and said something like that, but the touch of his hand had blown all my worries away. His warm hand had felt so comfortable in mine, and my heart began throbbing from excitement. I'd never held hands with a guy before. My hands weren't super sweaty or anything, right? My heart had continued pounding as I asked him to lunch. I'd been all worried when Hatsumi had suggested he might have brought his own, so hearing that he hadn't had flooded my body with relief. Still, I was mildly regretting not having asked him about this in advance. Was there anything he didn't like eating? Would he mind eating something made at home? Sure, I'd managed to ask him out, but I was still as nervous as ever. He'd poked my cheek too, and then for some reason, I'd ended up feeding him from my own chopsticks. Why did I feed him like that? But once I'd started, I couldn't back down. Please, Yashin, I'd internally screamed, desperate for him to take the bite. Hurry up and eat it. Everyone's staring, and I know I started this, but I'm actually super embarrassed. When he finally did eat the chicken I'd offered, I was able to continue eating my lunch, but wait, was that an indirect kiss? Whoa, it had taken me so long to realize, and when I finally did, I was even more embarrassed. I pressed my hands against my red-hot cheeks and curled up into a ball on my bed. You should have told me, Yashin. Really? An indirect kiss, actually. If he had told me that, I probably would have died from embarrassment. Not that Yashin would ever say anything like that. Had he known all along? And at the end of the day, we'd gone on a little shopping date after school. If it was a shopping date, does that make it our first date? Or did that not really count? From start to finish, everything had been a first for me. Well, I guess he was my first boyfriend, so that made sense. Yashin was only my boyfriend because of a dare, but being with him was so much fun, so much so that I couldn't wait to spend more time with him. Even so, I couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt. I stole a glance at Yashin's new bento box that I'd surreptitiously placed in my room. It was my treasured item, the first thing he'd ever bought for me. Well, saying he bought it for me wasn't quite right. Now that I thought about it, I understood why he'd offered to buy it himself, but I'd been too worked up at the time to notice. Still, the box was the closest I'd come to receiving a gift from Yashin, so I'd brought it to my room rather than hiding it in the kitchen. Every day from now on, I was going to pack it with a homemade lunch and hand it to him. Just the thought was making me feel all warm inside. Or a handmade bento from the loving wifey. The grinning faces of Hatsumi and Ayumi had immediately popped into my head. I'm not a loving wifey yet, I cried, sitting up in bed with way too much momentum. Geez, this is all because they said such silly things. Of course I'll put my love into it. That's what cooking is all about. I'll even put all of my love into it, but that's no different to how a mother makes lunch for her kids. Yeah, that's right. It's the exact same kind of love, probably. The more I thought about it, the hotter my face grew and the more I squirmed on my bed. I mean, what gives? Hatsumi had asked as they'd grilled me before school that morning. You've always been afraid of guys, but you show up to school holding hands with one seriously. Hatsumi, that's what I want to know. I'm so jealous. Gee, I'd love to hold my boyfriend's hand on the way to school. Not that I can, but Ayumi, on the other hand, had been envious. True, it had just been a walk to school, but I'd had so much fun. Going to school with friends was fun too, of course, but this was a different kind of fun. Ayumi's envy was understandable considering she couldn't enjoy that herself, regardless of their reactions. I told them about everything that had happened during the confession, and I mean everything, including the fact that Yashin saved me. The two had listened closely without a single interruption. Well, way to go, Monsieur Mai. He saved you and you totally fell for him. Huh, I see. Well, if that's the case, we were totally right to be worried about you. What kind of friends would we be if we left our oh-so-impressionable Minami behind and went off to vocational schools without her? It's true, you really are too easy, but we were totally right to choose Monsieur Mai. Huh, he seems just the guy to turn to in a tight spot, so he's the perfect match for our Nanami. How rude. I'm not in the slightest bit too easy. Despite their insults, I'd felt happy that the two of them were complimenting Yashin. I'd felt so happy, in fact, that I'd continued talking their ears off about him, this being only our second day of dating aside. By the time I'd realized just how much I'd been talking, they were both grinning at me in amusement. Mixed with that amusement, though, had been a look of relief. My ramblings had seemingly been less of a report on how the confession had gone, and more like that was regular girl talk, wasn't it? We've never done that sort of thing before, but it was kinder fun. Girl talk among the three of us. The three of us had even been chatting before my call with Yashin. Even though it had felt like I was the one doing all the speaking, the two of them had sat back and listened. They'd even given me the irresponsible advice that it was okay to be more proactive. Hold up, there was no way I could do that. Our conversation had finally ended with them kicking me off the call. Stop going on about how in love you are, and just go call him already. Do I really seem that in love? How embarrassing. Even so, it had taken me some time to get myself to contact him. I'd sat having a staring contest with my phone's home screen, unable to muster the courage, all the while asking myself how on earth I was going to do this. Would I be bothering him? Is he already asleep? I'd wondered, battling the thoughts in my head. But I kind of want to hear his voice. What should I do? In the end, I'd decided to start off by sending a text. Sure, I admitted I was a wuss. Then Yashin had called me himself, which I'd been really glad about, and as we'd continued talking, he'd asked me out on a date. I'd been utterly overwhelmed by his forwardness, considering he was so quiet at school, but I didn't dislike it. My only regret was that I'd already made plans for Saturday. His fluster at my response had been super cute, and even though I'd done my best to keep my cool, my heart had been racing in my chest. That aside, it really was a bummer that we wouldn't get to go on the date. But he hadn't stopped there. Suddenly, his manner had stiffened, and he'd asked me out on a date for Sunday. Of course, the answer was obvious. Actually, though I'd been planning to ask him out on a date for Sunday, I felt like he'd beaten me to it. I was a little miffed about it, but my elation overrode that feeling. Yashin had invited me on a date. I was so happy about that. Too happy. Why was I so happy? A date if we don't count our shopping trip today? Will this be our very first date? Sunday is our first date. I couldn't stop my feelings from ballooning with joy. I've got to make tomorrow's lunch a good one. Oh, but I've got her make sure Mom doesn't find out yet. Either way, Yashin sure was polite. He didn't have to worry about thanking me for the lunches. I was doing this because I liked him. Like him? Like whom? No, I like cooking and I'm practicing how to be a good girlfriend. That's all. Granted, that excuse wasn't gonna cut it. Anyway, in an attempt to rein in my overexcitement, I began to think about tomorrow's lunch. Yashin said he wanted a hamburger steak, so I'll make him a supersized one. Will it fit in the box we bought? Would he like an omelet too? Come to think of it, does he like sweet ones or salty ones? I should have asked him earlier. Should I make rice balls? Or should I use pink fish flakes to draw the giant heart on a bed of white rice? Yeah, I'm too embarrassed to make a heart, and I don't know what people will say if they find out, so I'll just make rice balls. He told me he could eat anything as long as it wasn't too herby, but I hadn't really been in the right state of mind to ask for any more details. I wanted to talk to him about so much more tomorrow. I wanted to know more about him, and I wanted him to learn more about me. But since that was the case, a month is so short, I mumbled subconsciously. It's just a dare, so there's no need to force yourself to keep going out with them. But of course it's okay if you do. That's what my friends had told me back when this had all started. To think I'd worried that a month would be way too long. It was rude enough to think that in the first place, that I hadn't had the faintest clue what I was supposed to do during that time. But now things were different. A month felt far too short. I was surprised my feelings could change so much in the span of a single day. I wanted to go get Bober with Yashin. He probably never had it before, so I would like to be the one to show him. I wanted him to try more of my cooking, not just the bento, but also my freshly made meals. I wanted him to say they were delicious. In that case, would I have to go to his house? I was nervous just thinking about it. If we continued dating, loads of events would come up. Festivals together sounded like a heap of fun, and for summer break, I wanted to go to the beach. Then there was Halloween, Christmas, and even Valentine's Day. Things I wanted to do, things I wanted to do for him, things I wanted him to do for me. When I started thinking of all those things, a month really did feel too short. Are you gonna kiss him tomorrow? Not yet. I can't. I cried as Hatsumi and Ayumi popped back into my head. This time, though, my mom popped her head round the door to scold me for all the noise. My bad. I have to stay calm. Yashin was so calm, unlike me. At school, he seemed really quiet, but maybe he was just really mature. He probably didn't even know I was nervous the whole time we'd been talking on the phone. Come to think of it, why had he spoken so politely when he'd invited me out that second time? The thought that maybe he was actually as nervous as I was reassured me a little. A month from now, what was I going to do? I was so scared that Yashin would find out about the dare and leave me. Just thinking about it made me want to cry. Am I really too easy? I wondered. No, that can't possibly be true. I'm not easy, but even as I thought that, I realized I had no legs to stand on. No matter what excuse I gave my friends, I couldn't get Yashin out of my head. That was why I made a decision to follow my friend's advice. I'll be super proactive. Just you watch. I'm gonna get Yashin to like me, and I'll do so with my cooking. We're gonna do lots of fun things. I am still too embarrassed to kiss him, but still, if I do that, there's no way he could leave me. I really was the worst. I was going to capture his heart so completely that even if he did find out about the dare, he would forgive me. I'm going to make Yashin smitten with me. This was the best I could do, given that I still didn't have the guts to tell him the full story. That means tomorrow is another day of bento making. Let's do this. As I stood up on my bed in sheer determination, my mom came back to yell at me. But now that I'd finally decided on a plan, there was no time left for hesitation. With my plan for the coming weeks set, I crawled into bed and fell fast asleep, praying I'd see Yashin in my dreams. No, wait. Why would I think that? Geez, maybe I really am too easy. Chapter 3. A challenger appears. I thought I had no regrets about my actions that night, but the second I woke up, I regretted everything. Good grief, it was too early for regrets, even for me. I shouldn't get so worked up before bed, I muttered. sitting up to hold my head in my hands. Why the hell had I chosen then to ask her out? I must have seemed super pushy. I wasn't regretting asking her out. I was regretting the fact that I might have scared Nanami-san. I had to think long and hard about having let myself get so carried away. At the very least, she'd sounded happy, so I decided not to think of it as a mistake. But even so, I thought it best to apologize later that day. I got myself together and prepared to head off to school, only to discover my mom downstairs in the living room. She would usually have gone off to work by now, so this was a rare occasion. "Morning, Mom." "Good morning." "Mine, you're up awfully early, Yashin. And for the second day running. Is there something going on?" She's a sharp one. Maybe she'd waited for me instead of heading off to work because she wanted to ask me at. I still couldn't bring myself to tell her I had a girlfriend, so I made up another story about having to take care of something at school. I received my lunch money from her in person for the first time in a while and then set off for school. As I was heading out the door, Mom called out to me, "On Saturday, it looks like your father and I can both have dinner with you. On Sunday, though, we're both heading off in the morning on business trips, so I'm afraid you'll have to eat by yourself." "Yeah, that's fine." "Okay, I'm off. Stay safe." After bidding my mom a morning farewell for the first time in a while, I made my way to the designated meeting spot. Nanami-san and I had planned to meet at around 7:30, but I was trying to get there with 30 minutes to spare. Yesterday, she and I had talked about our timing and both decided that we should stop arriving a whole hour before we were supposed to meet up. Getting sick from lack of sleep would defeat the purpose of meeting up in the first place. So today, I made my way with the intention of arriving 30 minutes early. When I finally arrived, it seemed I was the first one there. Though I won't have to keep her waiting. Too bad I'm already here. Shocked to hear the voice behind me, I spun around to see the grinning Nanami-san. Her hairstyle today was a variation on the braided look from the day before, with the addition of a side ponytail. I was pretty sure that was also one of the hairstyles the character in my profile pic wore. The fact that she'd bothered to make such a change honestly kind of flattered me. "Morning, Yashin. You're so early. I was all prepared to surprise you by getting here before you and then complain that you were late." She'd been thinking something that cute. No, more importantly, why had she been trying to surprise me? When I asked her, she told me it was in return for me surprising her the day before. I supposed I did poke her cheek yesterday, so that kinder made sense. Aside, I had more important things to say to her, which I knew the moment I met Nanami-san's somewhat expectant eyes. I steeled myself. "Good morning, Nanami-san. That's a nice hairstyle. It looks super PR pretty on you." I said it. I was finally able to say it. The word hadn't come out that smoothly, but judging by Nanami-san's satisfied expression, it seemed my response was correct. "Thanks. In that case, I present to you the privileges of holding my hand on our way to school and enjoying another bento I made for you." I am humbled and grateful. The delightful grin on Nanami-san's face told me she was satisfied with my response. I couldn't say for sure, but her manner today made her seem more at ease. Actually, maybe this wasn't her at ease. Maybe she was excited about something. Had something good happened to her? Well, as long as she was having fun, I supposed it was all good. I was happy too. With our greetings out of the way, we took each other's hand and continued on our way to school. There were way more people around than yesterday, but fewer of them were giving us strange looks. Did everyone already know? I sure hoped nothing weird would happen. "Oh, Nanami-san, I'd meant to say before, but I'm sorry for being so abrupt yesterday." Confused, she placed a finger on her cheek and tilted her head. Her cute gesture had me a little bit very flustered. "Why are you apologizing?" she asked. "Well, I mean, you're not so used to guys, right? I asked you out in the heat of the moment, so I felt bad that maybe I'd scared you." Nanami-san moved her finger from her cheek to her lips. Her gesture, which had a hint of sexiness to it, seemed to captivate some of the male students walking by. "Ush, it's okay. It's true that I'm not used to guys, and they're a little scary, but I was happy that you asked me out." "Yeah, I was really happy," she said with a shy smile. Could it be that the reason she'd seemed so excited this morning was because I'd asked her out on a date? Was I allowed to be just a little bit full of myself here? If so, that alone would make me feel like I'd been redeemed. Wait a minute, did I tell you that? It was then that I realized my mistake. She hadn't told me that she wasn't used to guys. I'd discovered that shred of information by accident on that fateful day. It was really hard for me to tell her that I'd overheard them talking about their dare, as in, I absolutely couldn't tell her. Oh, right. I mean, you mentioned yesterday that it was your first time dating someone, with you being this pretty and all. I thought the only reason that could happen was that you don't hang around guys much. It seems I guessed right. Ha! Despite my attempts to fake my composure, I was talking way faster than usual. Just thinking she was pretty was embarrassing enough. Never mind telling her again to save my skin. Somehow, though, I seemed to get away with it. Pretty Nanami-sen mumbled, turning red in the face. Yeah, I definitely got away with it. But why isn't Nanami-sen good with guys? With her being this cute and all, you'd think she could juggle guys however she wanted. I wonder if she had some kind of bad experience in the past. If so, then hopefully she can get more comfortable around them by practicing with me. It's not like all guys are weird, not that I can say with confidence that I'm not a weird guy. Oh, don't worry. It's not like there's some serious reason for it. It's just me. I get a little scared and stuff like that. She looked right at me and poked my cheek as if to reassure me. Was this payback for yesterday? Nanami-san continued, speaking as she poked my cheek some more. Had she taken a liking to the feel of it? When I was in elementary school, the boys used to pick on me a lot. It wasn't like I was afraid or super self-conscious around them or anything like that, but starting in 6th grade, that changed, and I started feeling really scared for some reason. Those must have been classic instances of boys picking on girls that they liked. I bet Nanami-san was a cute kid too. But more importantly, how did you know what I was thinking? I asked, slightly bemused. It's only been 3 days, but I am your girlfriend. Beaming with pride, she puffed out her chest and I had to touch my face to confirm. Had I really given that much away? If that was the case, I'd have to be more careful, or else she'd find out I knew about the dare. But somehow when she thrust out her chest that way, it was kind of awe-inspiring. Her thin button-down shirt drew my eyes, which were met with a bombardment of jiggles. That sight alone was enough to recharge my energy levels for the whole day. Of course, she noticed my gaze immediately and twisted to the side, using one hand to cover her cleavage. Shoot, there's no way she's okay with that. I have to apologize, I thought. Pervert. The destructive force of that single word, spoken with half-closed eyes and blushing cheeks, was tremendous. In near agony, I apologized to her harder and faster than I'd ever apologized in my life, but I never could have predicted that putting me in even more agony. I don't like guys looking at me like that, but it's you, so I forgive you. I stared at her, dumbfounded. That's totally against the rules, Nanami-sen. How can you tell me I can stare when other guys aren't allowed? Just how much do you want me to suffer? Restraining my body as it tried to move in weird ways, I somehow made it to the classroom. I wasn't bombarded by questions today, but once again Nanami-san was whisked away by Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san. Are they checking up on how the dare is going? I wished I could tell them not to worry and that Nanami-san was doing perfectly well. Soon after, with their conversation seemingly finished, Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san returned to the classroom grinning ear to ear. Nanami-san accompanied them, her face a new shade of red. Audiobook-san and Kamonai-san were also directing their grins at me. I wonder what they were talking about. Class proceeded without a hitch, and before long, it was time for lunch, the lunch hour I'd been waiting for. To think I would actually look forward to lunchtime, I was getting all emotional, when I really shouldn't have been letting my guard down. That's when the incident happened. Nanami-san smiled giddily and handed me my blue bento box. It was the very same bento box we'd purchased the day before. Slowly and carefully, I opened the lid and was moved by what was inside. There was a vibrant yellow omelette and fragrant sausage that had been slightly charred. They were accompanied by a stir-fry of spinach and carrots, with 2 large hamburger steaks for the main dish. It was a bento that embodied happiness. Of course, I took multiple photos to commemorate the occasion. Is it enough? Nanami-san asked worriedly. It's more than enough. Thanks, Nanami-san. It looks delicious today, too. Oh, good. But If that's the case, I won't be able to feed you myself when you run out of food." My face flushed as I remembered the incident from the day before. I couldn't have been the only one, though, since Nanarmi-san was blushing as well. She must have intended to tease me, but that teasing had blown up in her face. "Sorry, forget what I said," she mumbled. As we continued chatting and eating our lunches, a large shadow suddenly loomed over us. "Excuse me, Nanami-kun. May I have a word? I'm eating lunch with my boyfriend, so no, Shibsu-senpai." The shadow was that of some dude, a tall, handsome dude that was standing before us. He really was tall and looked even more so since we were sitting down. What was he, close to 190 centimeters? Even though he wasn't doing anything, just standing there in front of us, he was quite intimidating and a little bit scary. Nanami-san and I were about the same height. Even I, a guy, was scared of this dude, so she had to be even more scared. I scooted closer to Nanami-san, leaning into her little. Then, pretending not to see her surprised expression, I continued to face forward and pointed to the seat next to me on the other side. "I shouldn't keep you standing there, senpai. There's space here next to me if you'd like to sit down. I'm almost done eating my lunch, so would you mind waiting just a minute?" "Comment you are, Yashin Monsieur my Nanami-san's boyfriend." At my response, Shibsu-senpai's face twitched. He hesitated for a moment, but after a single glance at Nanami-san, who was refusing to even look at him, he obediently sat down next to me. "Wow, Nanami-san, this hamburger steak is absolute perfection. Once I